Aunt June didn't raise her voice when my brother slid the yellow legal pad toward her. She just put the cap back on Caleb's pen and laid it across the page. I'm not signing that. My father's oxygen machine hissed beside the bed. My mother stood at the footboard with both arms folded over her robe, as if June had refused to sign a birthday card instead of the last request of a dying man. "June," Mom whispered, "please don't do this now. I'm not doing anything. Caleb is." Caleb pulled the pad back. His handwriting covered half the page, neat block letters leaning slightly to the right. At the top he had written, "Frank Walsh's wishes for Diane and the house." 10 minutes earlier, Dad had looked directly at me and said, "Erin has done enough. Don't turn her into the plan." Caleb's version said I would continue the daily routines I already understood. It said he would oversee major decisions. It said Mom should remain in the house as long as she wished. June tapped the sentence about me with one red fingernail. "That is the opposite of what your father said." Behind us, Dad made a wet, dragging sound in his throat. And instead of tearing up the page, my whole family turned toward me to see whether I would make his last night harder. I moved to the bed and adjusted the clear oxygen tube beneath Dad's nose. It had left 2 angry grooves along his cheeks. His eyes were closed, but his right hand kept worrying the edge of the blanket, thumb and forefinger rubbing the same patch of cotton. "I'm here," I told him. His hand stopped moving for a second. Caleb sighed behind me, the controlled kind he used when someone else was being unreasonable in a way that inconvenienced him. "Nobody changed anything," he said. I summarized. "You reassigned," June said. "Could you two stop?" Mom's voice cracked. "He can hear you." That was how Mom settled arguments. She didn't choose a side. She identified the person whose tone was making her uncomfortable and treated that as the offense. Caleb lowered his voice. "Dad said he didn't want Erin burdened. Keeping the routines she already has is the least disruptive option. I'll take care of the big stuff." June stared at him. "What big stuff?" "The house, finances, repairs, decisions, things you can discuss over the phone. I live 25 minutes away, June, not in another country. You live 25 minutes away now. You lived 25 minutes away last Tuesday, too." Last Tuesday, I had called Caleb because Dad had slid halfway out of his recliner while I was trying to help him stand. I'd had one arm under Dad's shoulders and one knee braced against the chair, my phone trapped between my ear and my cheek. Caleb said he was about to get on a work call. He sold commercial flooring. From the way the family discussed it, you would have thought hospitals stopped operating when Caleb turned off his headset. "Enough," Mom said. Dad's eyes opened. All 4 of us went still. He looked past me at first, unfocused. Then his gaze found my face. His eyes were pale gray, the same as mine, though nobody ever mentioned that. People said I had Mom's seriousness and Caleb had Dad's charm. Even our features had been assigned personalities. "Water?" Dad whispered. I reached for the cup on the nightstand. It had a foam sleeve around it because cold plastic bothered his hands. I held the straw to his mouth, but he only managed a small sip before turning away. Caleb stepped closer with the pad. "Dad," I wrote down what we discussed. June made a disgusted sound. Caleb ignored her. "Mom stays here where she's comfortable. Erin keeps helping with the day-to-day things, since she knows the system. I handle the major responsibilities so it doesn't all fall on her." Dad's forehead tightened. For one hopeful second, I thought he understood every word. I thought he was going to lift the oxygen mask, ask for the page, and expose Caleb so completely that none of us could pretend anymore. Then Dad looked at the wall and said, "The gutters." "I've got the gutters," Caleb said quickly. The gutters had been cleaned 3 weeks earlier. I had scheduled it, paid the company, and stood in the driveway while a man named Luis showed me photographs of a cracked bracket over the garage. Caleb touched Dad's shoulder. "Don't worry about any of it." Dad's eyelids sank again. Mom pressed a fist to her mouth. I heard the little click her jaw made when she was trying not to cry. My irritation with her vanished so fast it embarrassed me. I put down the cup and went to her. She leaned into me without uncrossing her arms. He understood, Caleb said. You heard him. He said gutters, June replied. He was confirming the house. He was dying, Caleb. He wasn't approving your meeting minutes. Can everyone please stop saying that word? Mom snapped. The word was dying. We had spent 6 weeks replacing it with declining, resting, transitioning, not having a good day, and the long one the hospice nurse used. Actively passing, as if Dad were taking an exam. His breathing changed again. I counted the seconds between each breath because counting gave my brain a wall to push against. 6 seconds, then 8, then 4, quick, shallow pulls. I reached for the nurse's number. Mom caught my wrist. Is it time? I don't know. You said the nurse told you. I know what she told me. Caleb picked up the medication log from the nightstand. When did he have the morphine? 11:10. It's after 1. I can see the clock. He frowned at the chart like he had discovered an inconsistency. It says every 2 hours is needed. Yes. So he can have it now. He isn't showing pain signs. How do you know? Because I had been there when the nurse explained them. Because I knew which crease appeared between Dad's eyebrows when he hurt and which appeared when he was trying to remember something. Because I knew the difference between his restless hand and his frightened hand. I said, I know. Caleb looked at Mom, inviting her to notice how difficult I was being. June stepped between us and took the log out of his hand. Go make coffee. I don't need coffee. Then go make some for the people who do. To my surprise, Caleb went. Mom followed him, saying she needed to check whether there were clean mugs, though I had emptied the dishwasher before midnight. June waited until they were out of the room. What he wrote isn't what Frank said, she told me. I know. Your mother knows too. I looked at Dad. The bedroom still had the wallpaper Mom chose in 1998, tiny blue vines on cream. Dad had complained during installation that the pattern made him feel like he was sleeping inside a teacup. He complained about it for 27 years without once suggesting they replace it. June lowered her voice. Frank said she should sell in the spring. He said Caleb should manage the repairs and the move. He said, you get 6 months without anybody asking you for a damn thing. I heard him. Then don't let them change it. Dad's chest rose. Paused. Fell? What do you want me to do, June? Wake him up and hold a hearing? No, I want you not to sign. From the kitchen came the knock of a cabinet door, then Mom saying, not those mugs, the larger ones. It would have been funny on any other night. June sat on the edge of the dresser. She was 66, 4 years younger than Dad, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and the posture of someone who had spent her life expecting chairs to be less comfortable than advertised. She and Dad could go 3 months without speaking over a disagreement about nothing, then drive 6 hours together to attend a cousin's funeral. Walsh affection had always included an unnecessary obstacle. Why did he wait until tonight, I asked. June looked toward the bed. Your father was late to a lot of things. That's not an answer. It may be the only one you get. Caleb returned carrying one mug. It was Dad's Navy hardware store mug, the one with a chipped rim, and he had made coffee for himself. Mom came behind him with the legal pad. Let's just finish this, she said. Finish what? June asked. Making sure we all understand what happens next. The phrase, what happens next, landed harder than dying had. Mom put the pad on the dresser. Caleb had drawn 4 lines at the bottom for signatures. He had already signed the first. Diane Walsh was written on the second in my mother's slanted cursive. She had signed it in the kitchen. I looked at her. You heard what Dad said. I heard a sick man worrying that you were tired. He said you should move near June. I can't discuss selling my home while your father is lying there. You already signed that you're staying in it. Her face changed. Not much. Her mouth tightened, and her eyes moved away from mine. Caleb set his coffee beside Dad's medication. I moved it before he could spill it. Aaron, this isn't a legal contract, he said. It's a family understanding. Then why does it need signatures? So nobody twists things later. June laughed once, without humor. Dad groaned. That ended it. I went back to him, and for the next 20 minutes there was only breath, medicine, damp cloth, whispered questions, and Mom hovering close enough to help, but waiting to be told how. The hospice nurse said she was on her way. Dad grew agitated before she arrived. He pulled at the blanket and tried to lift his shoulders. I sat beside him and slipped my hand into his. "Easy," I said. "You're home." His fingers closed around mine with surprising strength. "Aaron?" "Yes." He looked scared. My father, who had once driven through a tornado warning because Caleb's car had broken down outside Dayton, looked at me like I might know a secret exit. "I'm right here." His lips moved. I bent until my ear was almost against his mouth. What came out might have been sorry. It might have been Sarah, which made no sense. It might only have been air catching around his tongue. I told him I know. It was a lie, but it calmed him. The nurse arrived at 2:12. Her name was Patrice, and she wore purple sneakers that squeaked faintly on the hallway floor. She checked Dad, spoke to him even when he didn't respond, and showed me how to wet his mouth with a sponge swab. Caleb asked her 3 questions about the oxygen concentrator, each one designed to demonstrate that he knew what an oxygen concentrator was. At 3:30, Mom fell asleep sitting upright in the armchair. At 4, Sarah called Caleb. He stepped into the hall and told her Dad was holding steady, even though Patrice had just explained that the longer spaces between breaths meant he was close. June stood at the window with both hands around a cup of tea. The unsigned legal pad remained on the dresser. At 4:47, Dad exhaled and didn't inhale again. Nobody moved during the first long silence. Then Mom woke as if someone had shouted her name. What happened? I kept holding Dad's hand. Mom came to the bed. "Frank?" Caleb appeared in the doorway with his phone still against his ear. June set down her tea. Patrice crossed the room and placed her stethoscope against Dad's chest. I watched her face because I couldn't watch his. "I'm sorry," she said. Mom made a sound I had never heard from another person. She climbed onto the edge of the bed and pressed her forehead against Dad's shoulder, saying no into his pajama shirt. Caleb ended his call. He stood behind her with one hand on her back, crying silently. I was still holding Dad's hand when his grip disappeared. Not loosened, disappeared. A minute earlier, it had been my father's hand. Now I was the one arranging his fingers. June came beside me. "You can let go," she whispered. I did, but only because she said I could. By 8 that morning, the bedroom had been stripped of everything that made it a sick room. The funeral home had taken Dad. Patrice had packed the medications for disposal. Caleb unplugged the oxygen machine and coiled the tubing with great care, finally finding a task nobody could dispute. I went into the kitchen and found Mom sitting at the table in Dad's empty chair. The yellow legal pad was beside her. She placed her palm over it when I entered. "Your father wanted us to stay together," she said. I looked at her hand covering Caleb's words. Then Caleb came in carrying the medication binder I had built, 3 inches thick with schedules, phone numbers, receipts, and notes. He dropped it in front of me. "We'll need to go through all this after you sleep," he said. "Mom's going to need consistency now." Dad had been dead for 3 hours. They were already turning me into the plan. I pushed the binder back across the table. "You should take it then." Caleb blinked. "Take what?" "The binder. You said you're handling the major responsibilities." He looked down at it as if I had handed him a sleeping animal. Mom lifted her palm from the legal pad long enough to smooth the front of her robe. "Nobody is handling anything this morning," she said. "We're all exhausted. You just said we needed consistency." "Later," Caleb said, "after we get through today." He pushed the binder toward me again. I stopped it with 2 fingers. "Dad's dead." "What consistency does he need?" Mom flinched. It was a cruel sentence. It was also the only sentence that made sense. Caleb's face hardened. Mom's consistency. Her medications are in the small blue container by the toaster. Morning pills with food. The names are on the lids. "I know how pills work, Aaron." "Great." I left the binder where it was and went upstairs. The bedroom smelled wrong without the oxygen machine running. Too still, too warm, with a sweet medicinal trace under the lavender spray Mom had used on the sheets. Dad's glasses sat on the nightstand beside a paperback mystery with a grocery receipt marking his place. I picked up the book, then put it down in exactly the same position. Mom came in behind me. "What suit?" she asked. "What, for your father?" "They'll ask what he should wear." Oh. It was the first question all morning that had a definite answer, and relief moved through me so quickly it felt obscene. The charcoal one. He hated that suit. He hated all suits. He liked the navy. The navy pants don't fit him anymore. She stared at Dad's closet. They might. Mom. People lose weight at the end. I know. She opened the closet and touched both jackets, weighing them like choices on a restaurant menu. Dad wore a suit maybe twice a year. The rest of his side of the closet was flannel shirts, golf shirts, and old jeans he insisted were still good despite holes at both knees. "Charcoal," she said, "with the blue tie. The striped one?" "No, the plain one you gave him. Caleb had given him the plain blue tie. I had given him the burgundy one with tiny silver dots. I took down the charcoal suit. Mom opened the top drawer of Dad's dresser, saw his folded undershirts, and closed it again. "I can't," she said. "I'll do it. I'll tell Caleb to help you. I don't need Caleb to select underwear." A laugh escaped her. It was small and startled, and she covered her mouth as if she had violated a rule. Then we were both laughing, not because anything was funny, because Dad would have despised the idea of his children holding a serious conference over which underwear he should be buried in. Mom sat on the edge of the bed, laughing and crying at once. "He'd say nobody better pick the stretched-out pair," she said. "He'd say he paid good money for those. They came in a six-pack. Still money." Her hand found mine. For a minute, we sat shoulder to shoulder, looking at the closet. This was the danger with my mother. She could make me feel entirely loved while asking nothing of me. Then the moment passed, and she remembered what I was useful for. "Can you call the church?" she asked. The phone began ringing before I had packed Dad's clothes. Neighbors, cousins, men who had worked with him 20 years earlier, people from Mom's prayer group. One woman Mom referred to only as the one with the dreadful potato salad. Every caller wanted details, and every detail created a new question. When was visitation? Were we receiving food? Which funeral home? Had someone contacted the veterans group? Did Dad still want the same hymns he chose for Grandpa? Were flowers appropriate? Or would the family prefer donations? Mom answered the first two calls and dissolved during both. Caleb answered the third, said, "I'm coordinating everything," then passed me the phone when the caller asked for the church secretary's number. June came downstairs in yesterday's clothes. She took one look at the kitchen table and carried the yellow legal pad into the dining room. Caleb noticed. "Where are you going with that? Someplace coffee won't spill on it. It's fine there. It's not fine anywhere." "June." She turned. "Would you like to have this conversation in front of your mother?" Mom was speaking to one of Dad's cousins and pretending not to listen. Caleb looked at her, then at me. "Put it somewhere safe," he said. June took it with her. At 10, Sarah arrived with a cardboard tray of coffee and 2 paper bags from the bakery. She hugged Caleb first, then Mom, then me. Sarah was tall and soft-spoken, with dark curls that always looked arranged even when she claimed she'd done nothing to them. She worked in hotel management, which meant she could enter any room, identify the person closest to a breakdown, and place a beverage in that person's hand. She gave me a coffee without asking how I took it. 2 creams, she said. No sugar. You remembered. You've ordered the same thing for 12 years. Caleb took a cup from the tray. Is this decaf? No. I told you I switched. You told me you were thinking about switching. I get headaches now. Sarah looked at him for a beat. Your father died 4 hours ago, Caleb. Drink the coffee. June's mouth twitched. Sarah started opening bakery boxes. I called Russo's. They can have a room ready at noon if that works. They said we can bring clothes then. I looked at Caleb. You called Sarah to call the funeral home? I asked her to check availability while I stayed with Mom. You were in the hallway, I was 3 feet away. Sarah glanced between us. I offered. Of course you did, I said, more sharply than she deserved. She closed one of the boxes. I rubbed my forehead. Sorry, it's okay. It wasn't, but she let me have the lie. At the funeral home, the director sat us around a polished oval table and gave each of us a pen. His name was Mr. Russo, and he had the careful face of a man who had spent 30 years making eye contact with people on their worst day. Mom sat between Caleb and me. June and Sarah took the chairs opposite us. Mr. Russo asked whether Dad had left any specific instructions. Caleb said, "I have his written wishes." June's pen stopped moving. He didn't write funeral instructions, I said. No, but he made his priorities clear. We're asking about music, readings, burial, Mr. Russo said gently. Mom chose the church. I chose the charcoal suit. Caleb chose the expensive casket after rejecting a simpler one because the lining didn't look like Dad. Dad had slept for 40 years on a mattress he bought at a warehouse liquidation sale. When Mr. Russo showed us memorial cards, Mom wanted a photograph of Dad at 60, before the cancer narrowed his face. Caleb wanted one from a company awards dinner where Dad wore a tuxedo. I found a picture on my phone of Dad standing in the backyard the previous fall. He had a knit cap pulled down over his ears and a red plaid blanket around his shoulders. He was smiling because June had just accused a squirrel of stealing directly from the bird feeder. He looked sick, Caleb said. He was sick. We don't need to remember him that way. I remember him that way. Mom stared at the photograph. Her thumb moved over the edge of my phone without touching the screen. He looks happy, she said. That settled it. Caleb leaned back in his chair. It was such a small victory that I hated myself for feeling it. Then we reached the obituary. Mr. Russo read the draft Caleb had emailed from his phone. It listed Dad's 34 years at Walsh Building Supply, his church committee, his fishing trips, and his devotion to family. It named Mom as his beloved wife, Caleb and me as his children, and Sarah as his daughter-in-law. There was one sentence about Caleb following Dad into sales. Nothing about the 14 months I had spent caring for him. Nothing about June coming every Thursday with soup Dad complained about and finished by Friday. I didn't need public credit for changing sheets or tracking morphine. I told myself that twice. Add his sister, I said. June Walsh. Caleb looked embarrassed. That's obviously an oversight. Then correct it. Of course. June looked down at her hands. Mr. Russo made the note. Anything else? I thought of Dad teaching me how to drive in the high school parking lot before sunrise because he claimed fewer witnesses meant fewer opinions. I thought of him refusing to let me mow the lawn because the mower was temperamental, then teaching Caleb at 13. I thought of the time I got a promotion and Dad said, "Good. Now maybe you can take a breath," while he threw Caleb a dinner for landing a contract worth half as much. There was no sentence that could hold all of that without lying. No, I said. We left the funeral home with a folder of forms and a list of decisions still to make. Caleb carried the folder. I carried Mom's purse, her coat, the garment bag with Dad's suit, and the box holding his shoes. In the parking lot, Mom stopped. His wedding ring. What about it? Caleb asked. Is he wearing it? We all looked at the garment bag as though the ring might be inside. It was on him, I said. The funeral home took it with him. Are you sure? Yes, but are you certain they know he's to be buried with it? I'll ask. Caleb handed me the folder, the numbers on top. June made a sound behind us. What? He asked. She opened her car door. Nothing. Aaron's better with details. Caleb didn't catch the sarcasm. Exactly, he said. Back at the house, casseroles had begun appearing on the porch. Mom stood over each one, trying to identify the sender by the dish. Sarah labeled them with blue painter's tape. Caleb took phone calls in Dad's office with the door half closed. I found the medication binder where I had left it on the kitchen table. Somebody had moved the legal pad. A pale rectangle showed where it had been protected from a dusting of flour. June, I called. She came in from the dining room with her purse over one shoulder. "What did you do with Dad's page?" I put it in the side pocket. "Of your purse, where Caleb can't add an appendix." I almost smiled. Mom entered carrying a foil-covered baking dish. "Your aunt has decided she's the guardian of truth." June faced her. "Somebody should be. Not today. Today was when it happened." Mom's grip tightened around the dish. "My husband died this morning. My brother died. And you spent his last hour picking a fight. No, I spent it refusing to help you erase what he said." The foil crinkled under Mom's fingers. I took the casserole before she dropped it. It was still warm. A piece of masking tape on top said, "Tuna, no peas." "Stop," I said. "Both of you." June looked at me first. "Do you want the page?" I should have said yes. Instead, I opened the refrigerator and tried to find space between 3 pans of lasagna and a bowl of fruit nobody had covered properly. "Keep it safe," I said. Mom left the kitchen. June stood there long enough for me to feel her disappointment. "You think you can survive this week by not choosing," she said. "I think I can survive this week by getting through the funeral. And after that?" The refrigerator motor kicked on. Somewhere down the hall, Caleb laughed softly at something a caller said, then caught himself and lowered his voice. "After that," I said, "I sleep." June adjusted her purse. "That isn't what they have planned for you." She kissed my temple and left. I put the tuna casserole on top of the vegetable drawer. When I straightened, Caleb was standing in the doorway with Dad's funeral folder tucked beneath one arm. "Who has the written request?" he asked. "June." His jaw shifted. "Why?" "Because she wouldn't sign it. That doesn't make it hers. It doesn't make it Dad's either." He studied me, deciding whether grief excused what I had said. Then he placed a sheet of paper on the counter. It was a list of everything that had to happen before visitation, divided into categories. My name appeared beside 14 items. Caleb's appeared beside 3. "I'm trying to keep us organized," he said. I read the first task under my name. "Call Mom's doctor about sleep medication." Dad had been dead less than 8 hours, and Caleb had already made me responsible for how my mother grieved. I found a pen in the junk drawer and crossed out my name. Caleb watched me write his beside the doctor's number. "What are you doing?" "Keeping us organized." "I don't know her doctor. The name is on the list. I don't know what medication she takes. The blue container is by the toaster." His expression changed. He recognized his own words when I returned them, but that didn't make him like them. "Aaron, I have the church, the burial paperwork, and all the calls from Dad's former employees. You put yourself down for those. Because I'm the logical person, and you're Mom's son. You're really doing this now?" I capped the pen. Apparently, now is when things happen. Mom came into the kitchen before he could answer. She had changed into black pants and one of Dad's old gray cardigans. The sleeves covered half her hands. "What's happening?" "Nothing," Caleb said. "Caleb's calling your doctor to ask about sleep medication." "I don't want sleep medication." He looked at me. "See?" Mom opened a bakery box, considered 3 pastries, then closed it without taking one. "I don't like the way they make me feel. Groggy and detached." "You haven't taken them before," I said. "Betty Harrison did after Tom died." Caleb drew a line through the task. "Handled. You crossed it off. She doesn't want it. You didn't call anyone." Because I solved the underlying issue. Mom nodded as though he had performed a diagnosis. I laughed. Neither of them joined me. The laughter came out higher than I expected and stayed too long. I covered it by opening cabinets, though I had no idea what I was looking for. Mom touched my arm. "You need sleep. So does Caleb." "I'll sleep at home," he said. He heard it only after it was out. Mom's hand dropped from my arm. Caleb glanced toward the hallway. "I mean, I can stay here if you want me to." No. She tugged Dad's cardigan closed. "You and Sarah should be in your own bed." He accepted too quickly. "I'll come first thing in the morning." Mom looked at me. She didn't ask whether I planned to stay. She didn't have to. That night, she refused to sleep in the bedroom. I made up the couch while she wandered from room to room, turning on lamps. Every light made the house look staged for a showing. Dad's recliner was empty, a shallow impression still visible in the cushion where his body had been. At 11, Mom asked if I thought the funeral home had remembered his plain blue tie. At 11:20, she asked if I had locked the back door. At midnight, she wanted to know whether I'd called her sister in Arizona. Mom didn't have a sister in Arizona. She meant Dad's cousin Anne, who lived in New Mexico. At 12:15, she stood in the kitchen holding Dad's coffee mug. "Caleb left this in the bedroom," she said. I took it from her. There was a brown ring dried inside. It was the coffee Caleb had carried in while Dad was dying. "Put it in the dishwasher," Mom said. I set it beside the sink. "No." She pushed it toward me. "Wash it." "Now? I don't want the stain to set. It's ceramic. Please, Erin." I washed the mug. She watched me dry it and return it to the cabinet. Then she opened the cabinet, took it back out, and carried it to the living room. I found her asleep on the couch at 2, with the mug cradled against her stomach. I covered her with a blanket and spent the rest of the night in Dad's recliner, afraid that if I slept too deeply, she would wake and think she was alone. Caleb arrived at 9:17 wearing running clothes and carrying 4 empty storage bins. "I thought we could start sorting medical supplies," he said. Mom was still asleep. "You said first thing. It is first thing. You've been awake long enough to run 5 miles. 4. Congratulations." He stacked the bins by the stairs. "Sarah said you were upset yesterday." "Sarah said that?" "She said everyone was tense." "That's not the same thing. Why do you always do that?" "Do what?" "Grab one word and prosecute it." He went into the kitchen and started a fresh pot of coffee without emptying yesterday's grounds. I took the filter basket from him. "You can't put new grounds on top of old ones. It's all coffee." I dumped the wet grounds into the trash. He leaned against the counter. "I know you're tired, do you?" "Yes, Erin. Believe it or not, I'm aware you've done a lot." The words should have helped. Instead, I waited for the rest. He looked down the hall to make sure Mom wasn't there. "But you have to watch how you talk to her. She's fragile." There it was. I washed a mug for her at midnight. That's what I mean. She needs those little things right now. She needs them from both of us. I agree. You went home. Because she told me to. She told you what you wanted to hear. He spread his hands. "So I'm supposed to ignore her boundaries?" I looked at him until he frowned. "What?" "You just used the word boundaries. Adults are allowed to have them." I turned back to the coffee maker before I threw it at him. The visitation was the following afternoon. By then, I had answered enough questions about flower stands, photograph boards, guest books, and sandwich trays to understand that death was mostly logistics performed while wearing uncomfortable shoes. Sarah met us at the funeral home. She had brought lint rollers, breath mints, tissues, safety pins, stain remover, and a packet of crackers Mom refused until Sarah broke one in half and ate the other piece herself. Dad looked like Dad from across the room. Up close, he looked like a careful sculpture made from the general idea of him. His cheeks were fuller than they had been the day before. The plain blue tie sat perfectly centered beneath his chin. His wedding ring was on his left hand. Mom touched it immediately. "They remembered," she whispered. I did not tell her I had called twice. Caleb stood beside the casket with one hand in his pocket, greeting people as they arrived. He was good at it. That was the irritating part. He remembered names. He made eye contact. He knew when to clasp a shoulder and when to step back. Grieving men told him he was strong, and grieving women told him he looked just like Frank. I stood on Mom's other side and kept track of her water. Dad's former supervisor, Mr. Leland, held my hand and said, "Your brother did a beautiful job arranging all this." "Thank you," I said. A woman from church asked me which casserole dish was hers. Dad's neighbor asked whether I could give him the number for the gutter company. A cousin I had not seen in 9 years hugged me and whispered, "Now you make sure your mother doesn't have to worry about a thing." Across the room, Caleb was telling a group of men the story of how Dad once drove through a tornado, warning to get him when his car broke down outside Dayton. He left out why the car had broken down. Caleb had ignored the temperature gauge for 40 miles because he was late to meet friends. Dad paid for the tow, the radiator, and 2 nights at a motel. For years, the story became proof of Dad's devotion, never proof of Caleb's carelessness. Caleb caught me looking and lifted his eyebrows, inviting me to appreciate the story. I turned away. June arrived alone in a black dress and the red earrings Dad had given her for her 60th birthday. She hugged Mom, kissed Dad's forehead, and came to me. "The page is in my desk drawer," she said quietly. "I didn't ask." "I know. Did you come to see Dad or guard evidence?" Her face shifted. I regretted it instantly, but June only said, "Both can be true." She moved away to speak to one of Dad's cousins. Sarah appeared beside me with a cup of water. "You look pale." "I'm wearing funeral home lighting. You haven't eaten. I had toast." "When?" I thought about it. She gave me the crackers Mom had rejected. "Eat these before you become another event I have to organize." "That sounds like Caleb." "No, Caleb would delegate the event." I laughed despite myself. Sarah watched her husband across the room. He doesn't know what to do when he can't fix how people see him. What does that mean? It means he's been checking his reflection in that window for 20 minutes. I looked. Caleb's reflection floated above a silk arrangement of white lilies. As if on cue, he adjusted his tie. "He thinks he's helping," Sarah said. "He always thinks that." "You think that, too." The crackers turned dry in my mouth. Sarah took the empty wrapper from me. That wasn't an insult. It didn't sound like a compliment. It wasn't that either. Before I could answer, Mom called my name. She was sitting in a chair near the casket with both hands gripping the arms. "I need air," she said. Caleb heard and came over. "I'll walk you outside." "No, Erin knows where my coat is." Her coat was draped over the chair behind her. I handed it to Caleb. "Take her." Mom looked from him to me. "Are you coming? I'll be right here." Her eyes filled so quickly I felt the floor tilt under me. "You said you'd be right here," she whispered. The words belonged to the night Dad died. I didn't know whether she meant to use them that way. I went outside with her. We stood under the funeral home awning while a cold drizzle silvered the parking lot. Mom held my arm with both hands. "I don't know how to go back in," she said. "We can stay out here. People will think I'm rude. Nobody thinks that. Your father would." Dad left his own retirement party because the speeches were too long. She smiled faintly. A car pulled into the lot, and Mom straightened before its occupants could see her bent against me. Even grief had manners. The funeral was the next morning. Dad's photograph, the backyard one I chose, smiled from the memorial cards. The pastor spoke about faith, endurance, and family duty. Caleb gave a reading without stumbling. June sat rigid beside me. At the end, Caleb asked for a moment to speak. He had not told us he planned to. He stood behind the lectern and talked about Dad teaching him to work hard, keep promises, and care for the people who depended on him. His voice broke in exactly one place, and I hated myself for wondering whether he had practiced. Then he looked at Mom. Dad's last concern was that Mom remained surrounded by the life they built together, he said. He asked us to keep her safe in their home and to continue in the roles each of us already knows. June inhaled sharply. My mother lowered her head. Caleb placed a hand over his heart. I promised him we would. People around us murmured approval. A woman behind me whispered, "What a good son." I stared at the back of Caleb's suit while the church transformed his version into something sacred. June reached for my hand. I pulled mine away. Not because I was angry with her, because if she held on to me, I might have stood up. The pastor asked everyone to stand. I stayed seated half a second too long. June noticed. Her knee pressed against mine beneath the pew, not quite comfort and not quite warning. Then I stood with everybody else while the organ began and Caleb returned to his place beside Sarah. He didn't look at me. At the cemetery, rain tapped against the green canopy stretched over Dad's grave. Caleb held the umbrella above Mom, leaving one shoulder exposed so water darkened his suit. It was the kind of image people remembered, the grieving son getting wet so his mother wouldn't. I stood on Mom's other side, holding her purse, the packet from the funeral home, her gloves, and the bottle of water she kept refusing. When the service ended, people came forward one at a time to place flowers on the casket. Mom's knees wobbled as she stood. "I can't," she whispered. Caleb tightened his arm around her. "I've got you." She reached backward without looking. I took her hand. The three of us approached the casket together, Caleb supporting her body while I carried everything else. Even then, the arrangement felt familiar. The reception was in the church hall, where folding tables had been covered in white plastic cloths and arranged around a photograph of Dad holding a fishing pole. Women from the church served ham, rolls, potato salad, green beans, and a sheet cake with blue frosting. Dad had hated green beans and loved chocolate cake, but the cake was vanilla. Mom ate 3 bites of ham and spent 20 minutes apologizing for not eating more. Caleb stood near the coffee urn receiving condolences. Every few minutes, someone touched his elbow and praised what he had said. "Your father would be proud. That promise will mean everything to your mother. Keeping her in that house is the right thing." Caleb accepted each comment with a solemn nod. He never said the arrangement had been disputed. He never said Dad's actual words had been the opposite. A man from Dad's church committee cornered me beside the dessert table. "Your brother tells me you'll be staying with Diane," he said, "for now. She's fortunate. A son handles the big decisions, a daughter handles the heart." He smiled as though he had given me a gift. "What does the heart handle?" I asked. His smile flickered. "You know, the personal things. Like medication, meals, appointments, laundry, cleaning, and being awake at 2 in the morning? Well," he picked up a square of cake. "Women have a way with those things. Do we?" He decided he needed coffee. Sarah appeared beside me as he left. "You're frightening the church people. He'll recover." She watched Caleb shake hands with another man. "What was that about roles? You heard the speech?" "I heard the speech. I'm asking what he meant." "Ask him." I did. He said Frank wanted everyone to keep doing what they were already doing. "Did he tell you Dad asked Caleb to write it down?" "Yes." "Did he tell you Aunt June refused to sign it?" Sarah's eyes moved to June, who was stacking abandoned paper plates at a nearby table. "No. Ask him why." She lowered her voice. "Aaron, I'm not trying to take sides." "Then don't. That's not fair." "No, it isn't," Mom called from across the room. "Aaron?" I went before she could call again. She wanted her cardigan, which was draped over the back of her chair. Caleb was standing close enough to touch it. He handed it to me so I could help her put it on. I stared at him. "What?" he said. "Nothing." Mom lifted one arm, waiting. I eased the cardigan over her shoulders. It was still Dad's gray one, hanging loose around her wrists. She had refused the black jacket I brought downstairs that morning. When the last guests began leaving, June took Caleb aside near the kitchen doors. I followed far enough to hear them without pretending I wasn't. "You need to correct what you said," she told him. Caleb loosened his tie. "At Dad's funeral? Not now. But with the family." I didn't say anything untrue. "You made a public promise on behalf of your sister. I made a promise on behalf of all of us. That's worse." He glanced toward Mom. She was seated with Sarah, sorting condolence cards into a neat stack. Dad wanted Mom taken care of. Dad specifically said Aaron should not be the plan, and she isn't. We're all helping. June looked around the room. Who collected Diane's coat? What does that have to do with anything? Who made sure she ate? Who has her purse? Who called the funeral home twice about Frank's ring? Who is taking her home? I'm taking her home. You're driving. Aaron is going home with her. I can't stay overnight every night. Neither can she. She lives there. She moved in because Frank was dying, and now Mom's alone. There it was, stated as if one fact naturally consumed the other. June's expression changed. "You really don't hear yourself. I hear somebody criticizing from the sidelines. At least I'm not assigning the field. He laughed once. That doesn't even make sense. It does if you're not stupid. June, I said. She looked at me. Not here. Her mouth tightened, but she nodded. Caleb pointed between us. This is what I'm talking about. You two are turning Dad's death into some kind of referendum on the family. No, June said. Your father did that. You rewrote the results. Sarah was behind him. None of us had seen her approach. She held Mom's condolence cards against her chest. We're ready to go. Caleb looked at her face, trying to determine how much she had heard. Okay. Sarah turned to me. Diane wants you. Of course she did. At the house, flowers covered the dining room table. Their combined scent was thick enough to taste. Mom walked from arrangement to arrangement reading the cards, then forgot which ones she had read and started again. Caleb carried in the food left from the reception. Sarah arranged containers in the refrigerator while I changed out of my black dress upstairs. When I came down, Caleb had Dad's truck keys in his hand. What are you doing? I asked. Taking the truck so it doesn't sit. It's been sitting for 3 days. Dad always said vehicles need to be driven. Mom looked up from a flower card. He did say that. I can drive it, I said. You hate that truck. I hate parking that truck. I'll use it for errands here. Which errands? He slipped the keys into his pocket. House things. The phrase covered everything and required nothing. Sarah closed the refrigerator. We have 2 cars. This way we're not putting miles on yours. It's 8 years old, Caleb, not a museum piece. Mom touched the plastic sleeve around one of the flower arrangements. Your father would want him to have it. The room went quiet. Even Caleb seemed surprised by how quickly she had said it. I'm not taking it permanently, he said. Mom's eyes filled. I didn't mean, it's fine. I picked up an empty water glass. Take the truck. Caleb watched me carry the glass into the kitchen. A minute later, the front door opened and closed. The truck's engine started in the driveway with the low, uneven rumble Dad had refused to get checked. Sarah stayed behind. She found me running water over a clean glass. You can stop washing that, she said. I turned off the faucet. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Did Frank really say you were supposed to keep taking care of Diane? She asked. I looked toward the dining room. Mom was moving flower cards into a new stack. No. What did he say? He said she should sell the house in the spring and move near June. Caleb was supposed to handle the repairs and the move. I was supposed to get 6 months where nobody asked me for anything. Sarah leaned against the counter. And then Caleb wrote something different? Yes. Did Frank approve it? He said something about the gutters. That isn't what I asked. It's the only answer there is. Her eyes closed briefly. Why didn't you tell me? Between the casket appointment and the burial. You could have told me yesterday. Your husband could have told you before he gave a speech about it in church. She nodded slowly. I expected her to defend him. Instead, she picked up a dish towel and folded it into quarters, then folded it again. He told me you wanted to stay, she said. I wanted Dad not to die. That's not the same thing. No. Mom entered the kitchen. Sarah placed the folded towel on the counter. Are you leaving too? Mom asked her. Soon. Mom turned to me. You're not going anywhere, are you? I wanted to say. I live here. But that was the problem. I'm here tonight. Her face softened. Good. She took my hand and led me toward the living room because she wanted help choosing which flowers should go beside Dad's recliner. Sarah left without saying anything more. The house emptied. I removed bobby pins from Mom's hair while she sat on the edge of her bed. She stared at Dad's side, where the sheets had been changed and pulled tight. I heard what June said to Caleb, she told me. I set the pins in a little pile on the dresser. Which part? That your father wanted me to sell. He did. He was frightened. So were we. He didn't mean I should make decisions right away. No one said right away. He said spring. Yes. She rubbed the sleeve of Dad's cardigan between 2 fingers. That's right away when you're my age. I didn't answer. She looked at me through the mirror. You aren't going to make me leave, are you? The question was so carefully shaped that any honest answer made me cruel. I'm not making you do anything. You'd tell me if you were unhappy here. I looked down at the bobby pins. I'm tired. That isn't the same thing. It was almost exactly what Sarah had said. Mom reached behind her and covered my hand. We'll figure it out together. Together meant I would handle tomorrow while Caleb oversaw the future. For 9 days, he called every morning. He asked whether Mom had slept, whether the church had picked up the folding chairs, whether I had canceled Dad's dental cleaning, whether the oxygen company had collected its machine, whether thank you notes had been started, and whether the loose railing on the porch felt worse. He did not come over. When I asked about the truck, he said it was running great. When I asked when he planned to repair the railing, he said he was getting estimates. On the 10th morning, a message appeared in the family group chat. Dinner Sunday at Mom's. We need a clear plan going forward. I'll bring a schedule. Mom read it over my shoulder. That's good, she said. Your brother is finally taking charge. I looked at the 2 coffee cups in the sink, the appointment calendar open beside the toaster, and Dad's gray cardigan hanging from the back of her chair. Then I typed, "Bring the binder, too." Caleb replied with a thumbs up. He had no idea I meant for him to take it home. Sunday dinner began on Friday afternoon when Mom announced we needed a pot roast. Caleb likes the one with the onion soup mix, she said. I was at the kitchen table canceling Dad's automatic prescription refills. Caleb is capable of eating another roast. It's the first family dinner without your father, so maybe we shouldn't build it around Caleb. She opened the pantry and stood there, studying shelves I had organized 3 weeks earlier. Do we have onion soup mix? Second shelf, left side. I don't see it. I got up, reached past her, and touched the box. Oh, she said, there. On Saturday, she decided the dining room curtains needed washing because people in grief apparently inspected window treatments. I told her June and Sarah had seen the curtains before. Mom said that wasn't the point. I never learned what the point was. By Sunday afternoon, I had washed the curtains, bought the roast, peeled potatoes, scrubbed the bathroom, and moved 11 flower arrangements into the sunroom because their smell was giving Mom a headache. The binder sat on Caleb's chair at the dining table. I had put a yellow sticky note on it. For Caleb, major responsibilities. June arrived first, carrying a bottle of wine and a grocery store pie. I thought you didn't drink on Sundays, Mom said. I don't drink every Sunday. Frank always said, Frank is not currently observing my alcohol intake. Mom's face pinched. June kissed her cheek. The pie is apple. I made apple crisp. Then we're experiencing abundance. June found me in the kitchen basting the roast. She glanced toward the dining room. Subtle. I used a yellow sticky note. I saw, yellow is cheerful. Caleb won't. She opened the wine and poured 2 glasses without asking. I took mine. Do you still have the page? I asked. Yes. Did you bring it? No. Why? Because this is dinner, not a trial. Caleb is bringing exhibits. June sipped her wine. The page proves what he wrote. It doesn't prove what Frank said. You heard him. So did Diane. Mom entered as if her name had pulled her from the other room. Heard what? June set down her glass. Frank. I heard many things from my husband. The thing we're all rearranging our lives around. Nobody is rearranging your life. June looked at me. I opened the oven, releasing enough heat to end the conversation. The back door opened without a knock. Caleb came in carrying his laptop bag and a white bakery box. Sarah followed with a salad bowl covered in plastic wrap. Dad's truck was in the driveway. Mom brightened. There he is. Caleb kissed her and held up the bakery box. Cheesecake. I made apple crisp and June brought pie. Now we have options. Abundance, June said. Sarah gave me a careful hug. It was the first time I had seen her since the funeral. How are you? She asked. Cooking. I can see that. You? Married. Caleb was taking containers from his bag and didn't hear. Sarah's mouth twitched, but her eyes stayed serious. Need help? Put the salad in the refrigerator. She did it without praising herself. Caleb saw the binder when we sat down. "What's this? Your copy of the household information. I thought we were going through it together." "I already went through it. That's why it contains information." Mom gave me a warning look. "We're going to eat first." Caleb moved the binder to the floor beside him. My sticky note remained visible against the dark wood. Dinner was almost pleasant for 11 minutes. June told a story about Dad trying to teach her to fish and dropping his wallet in the lake. Mom corrected the location of the lake, the year, and the color of the boat. Caleb said Dad never told him that story. "He didn't tell you every story," June said. "He told me most." Sarah passed him the potatoes. Apparently not. Mom asked if anyone wanted more roast. Everyone said no. She asked again. The empty chair at the head of the table seemed to grow larger every time the conversation paused. Dad had sat there even when he ate nothing, cutting one green bean into smaller and smaller pieces while telling us he wasn't hungry. Mom had set his place out of habit. Halfway through the meal, she noticed, her fork stopped. Nobody spoke. She picked up the extra plate and carried it into the kitchen. I started to stand, but June touched my wrist. "Letter," she said. Mom returned without the plate and asked Sarah about work. It was the kindest thing June had done for me all week. After dessert, Caleb cleared his throat and retrieved a folder from his laptop bag. I put something together. Sarah leaned back in her chair. He handed each of us a printed sheet. Colored blocks divided the week into mornings, afternoons, evenings, and a final column labeled Oversight. My name filled 17 blocks. I had weekday mornings for breakfast and medication, Tuesdays and Thursdays for groceries and household care, Wednesdays for appointments, every evening for general check-in, and all overnight emergencies because I lived in the house. June had Monday lunch and alternate Friday afternoons. Sarah and Caleb had one Saturday lunch per month. Caleb's name appeared in the oversight column for all 7 days. I read it twice, hoping the second version would contain a joke. "What are you overseeing on Wednesday?" I asked. "Whatever comes up. I'm handling appointments. You're driving. I'll help with decisions." "From where?" "Aaron," Mom said. "No, I'm curious. Is there a tower?" Caleb folded his hands. "Can we discuss this like adults? Adults generally assign their own time. This is a draft. Then why is my name printed in color?" "Because I started with the current routine. The current routine is the problem." Mom put her sheet down. "I don't understand why everything has to be a problem. It doesn't." I pointed to the schedule. "This does." Caleb exhaled slowly. Dad wanted consistency. June pushed the page away without touching the pen Caleb had placed beside it. "No," she said. "You wanted consistency. He asked us to keep Mom safe. He asked you to move her near me in the spring." Mom's chair scraped the floor. "I am sitting right here." "We know," June said. "You speak about me as if I'm a package. I'm speaking about the request Frank made in front of you. I have not decided to sell my home. No one is forcing you." "Then stop saying it as if it's settled." Sarah studied the schedule. "Why is my name only on one Saturday?" Caleb turned to her. "I didn't want to volunteer you. You volunteered Erin. She lives here." "For now," I said. The room went still. Caleb looked at me. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm moving out." Mom stared at my face as if waiting for me to soften. I didn't. "When?" Sarah asked quietly. 3 weeks. "You found a place?" Caleb said. "I'm looking." He gave a short laugh. "So this is a threat?" "No. A threat would be telling you I might leave if you don't change. I'm telling you I'm leaving." Mom stood. "You can't decide something like this at the dinner table." "I decided before dinner." "You didn't tell me." "I'm telling you now. You waited until everyone was here to embarrass me. I waited until everyone who made plans for my time was here to hear it." Her face flushed. "I didn't make that schedule. You signed Dad's request. I signed what Caleb wrote because your father wanted peace." Dad was unconscious. He heard it. He heard the word gutters. Caleb slapped his palm against the table. Silverware jumped. Enough. Sarah flinched. June did not. Caleb leaned toward me. Do you hear yourself? You're attacking Mom 10 days after Dad died because I made a draft schedule. I'm leaving because that schedule is the next 10 years of my life. Dramatic. You gave yourself lunch once a month. I have a full-time job. So do I. You work remotely, 3 days a week, and remote work is still work. You moved here to take care of Dad while he died. Mom made a wounded sound. I turned to her. I stayed because I loved him. I stayed because you both needed help. I did not agree to become the permanent structure holding this house up. You make it sound like we used you. Nobody answered. That frightened her more than if we had argued. She looked at Caleb. He reached for her hand. No one is using anyone. June said, Then take half the blocks. I don't live here. You keep returning to that as if an address is a medical condition. I can't just uproot my life. My laugh came out flat. Exactly. Mom pulled her hand away from Caleb. Daughters do not abandon their mothers. The sentence hung above the table. Sarah looked down. Caleb watched me, waiting for the blow-up that would prove I was unreasonable. June's face went still in the way it did when she was angriest. I heard Dad's oxygen machine in my head. I saw his hand rubbing the blanket. Caleb moved out 21 years ago, I said. Did he abandon you? That was different. Why? He was building his life. What do you think I was doing? You had your life until you needed it. Mom's mouth opened. I wanted her to deny it. I wanted her to say she had never thought of my life as something stored in a closet, available whenever the family needed an extra blanket. Instead, she said, You're better at this than he is. Caleb shifted in his chair. It was the first honest thing anyone had said all evening. I nodded. Then he gets 3 weeks to learn. Mom began to cry, not loudly. That would have been easier. She sat down and pressed her napkin under each eye, careful not to smear her mascara. Caleb stood. Look what you've done. Sarah looked up at him. Sit down. He stared at her. Not everything is a scene you have to direct, she said. I'm comforting my mother. You're pointing at your sister. Mom pushed away from the table and left the room. Caleb went after her anyway. I stayed in my chair. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to follow, bring water, find tissues, sit beside her, explain myself more gently, promise I wouldn't leave until she felt ready. June poured the last of the wine into my glass. Don't, she said. I didn't move. You were about to. Sarah began stacking plates. Her hands shook slightly. I folded Caleb's schedule in half, then in half again. The binder was still on the floor beside his chair. I picked it up and carried it to the front hall. Dad's truck keys lay on the little table beneath the mirror. Caleb must have put them there when he came in. For 1 second, I considered hiding them. Instead, I set the binder beside them with the yellow note facing up. Upstairs, a closet door opened and closed. Mom was probably searching for Dad's cardigan even though it was hanging over the kitchen chair. I went to my room and pulled an empty suitcase from under the bed. I had given myself 3 weeks. The family would spend every one of them trying to make me take it back. The suitcase had a broken wheel. I discovered that after filling it with sweaters and pulling it 3 feet across the carpet, it dragged sideways, leaving a faint gray line behind it. Dad had always said he could fix the wheel. For 6 years, whenever I mentioned replacing the suitcase, he said, Don't throw out a good thing over one bad part. I sat on the edge of the bed with the handle still in my hand. Downstairs, I could hear Caleb using his reasonable voice. She's exhausted, Mom. She doesn't mean it. I let go of the suitcase. My bedroom door opened without a knock. Caleb stood there, one hand on the frame. Can we talk? You're already in. He closed the door behind him. Mom is beside herself. She's been beside herself since Dad died. And you chose now to make a major announcement? When would you prefer? Not at a family dinner. You brought a weekly assignment chart to a family dinner. It was a starting point. So is my move-out date. He looked at the suitcase. This is ridiculous. It's luggage. You haven't even found a place. I will. In 3 weeks? Yes. He sat in Dad's old desk chair and rolled closer. The chair squeaked under him. I had used that desk through high school, college breaks, my divorce, and the final months of Dad's illness. Caleb had carved his initials into the underside when he was 15 and blamed me until Dad found the pocket knife in Caleb's room. Even then, Dad had called it a misunderstanding. "You can't make a stable decision this soon after a loss," Caleb said. "Was your schedule unstable? That's different. Everything you want is different." He leaned forward. "Mom cannot live here alone." "I agree." That stopped him. "You do?" "Yes. The house is too big. The stairs hurt her knees. She hates driving after dark and she hasn't managed the bills in years." "Then why would you leave?" "Because I'm not the solution." He rubbed his jaw. "You're acting like caring for her is a punishment." "No, I'm acting like it's work. She's our mother." "Then do half. I told you I can't uproot my life, and I told you I won't keep uprooting mine." He stared at me, angry enough to become quiet. "What exactly do you want from me? Take the binder, learn her medications, call the repair companies, drive her to appointments? Come here when she calls instead of calling me to check why she called. I do things. Name one thing you've done since the funeral that wasn't a speech, a list, or taking Dad's truck." His face reddened. "The truck needs to be driven. So does Mom. That's low. It's accurate." He stood so abruptly, the chair rolled backward into the desk. "You know, Dad worried about how hard you make things. It landed because Caleb knew where to put it." I looked down at my hands. Dad had said versions of that throughout my life. "Why can't you let it go? Why does everything have to be a principle? Your brother didn't mean it that way. Caleb's mistakes were events. My reaction to them was character." Caleb saw the hit and softened his voice. "He loved you." "I know. He didn't want us fighting. He told you not to turn me into the plan. He was talking about doing everything alone. Nobody expects that. The schedule had my name on every day because you live here. For 3 more weeks." He left without another word. A few minutes later, the truck started in the driveway. Through the window, I saw Sarah's car pull out behind it. The binder remained beside the front door. Mom stayed in her room until morning. When she came down, she was wearing her own blue robe instead of Dad's cardigan. She walked past me, took the medication container from beside the toaster, and shook 2 pills into her palm. "Did you eat?" I asked. "I can manage breakfast. You take those with food. I know my own medication." I set a piece of bread in the toaster. "I didn't ask you to do that." I took the bread back out. She poured water into a glass and swallowed the pills on an empty stomach. We stood 6 feet apart in a kitchen where I'd made her breakfast almost every day for 14 months. "You don't have to punish yourself to prove I'm unnecessary," I said. "I'm not punishing anyone. You haven't eaten. I'm not hungry. You told Caleb you love the roast." That was before dinner was ruined. I put the bread back in the bag. She flinched like I had slammed something. The first week became a contest neither of us admitted we were having. Mom stopped asking me for small things. Instead, she performed them loudly. Cabinet doors closed harder. Grocery bags appeared on the kitchen counter after she drove herself to the store in daylight. She carried laundry upstairs 1 item at a time, rather than let me take the basket. Then she asked questions that weren't technically requests. "I wonder when trash pickup changes for the holiday. I suppose the pharmacy will call someone when my prescription is ready. Your father always checked the furnace filter around this time." If I answered, she heard it as surrender. If I didn't, she sighed. Caleb called her every morning and me every afternoon. "How did she sound?" he asked. "You spoke to her. She says she's fine." "Then she's fine. You know she says that when she isn't. So come see. I have meetings." On Wednesday, Mom had a rheumatology appointment. It was already on my calendar, and I drove her without mentioning it. Halfway there, she said, "You don't have to do this." "I know," Caleb offered. "What time did he think the appointment was?" She looked out the window. He didn't ask. At the clinic, she introduced me to the receptionist as the one who keeps everybody organized. She sounded proud. In the car afterward, she said, If you took an apartment nearby, nothing would really have to change. I want things to change. She folded the visit summary into smaller and smaller rectangles. Because of me? Because of all of us. That means me. It also means Caleb and Dad. She stopped folding. Your father is dead. He still takes up a lot of room. Her face turned toward the passenger window. I wanted to reach across the console. I wanted to take back the sentence, though it was true. Instead, I drove the rest of the way with the radio off. I viewed 4 apartments that week. The first smelled like cigarette smoke hidden under lemon cleaner. The second had a bedroom window facing a brick wall. The third was 6 minutes from Mom's house. The leasing agent called it perfect for staying connected to family. I left before she finished the tour. The fourth was 38 minutes away in a plain brick complex with uneven sidewalks and laundry rooms on every floor. The living room carpet was beige. The kitchen had old oak cabinets and a dishwasher loud enough that the leasing agent turned it on as a demonstration, then had to raise her voice. But the bedroom windows faced west. Late sunlight stretched across the empty floor, and I pictured setting my coffee there in the morning without anyone calling my name from another room. I'll take it, I said. The agent smiled. Would you like to see the fitness room? No. It was renovated last year. I believe you. I signed the application at a plastic table in the leasing office. When she asked for my current address, my hand paused. The house where Dad died had been my address for 14 months. Before that, I had rented a small duplex closer to work, but I gave it up when his treatment schedule became impossible to manage from across town. I had told myself I was saving money. Dad had called it sensible. Mom had said my old place was too quiet anyway. Nobody asked whether I liked quiet. The apartment approval came the next morning. I was working at the kitchen table when the email appeared. My first instinct was to close the laptop before Mom saw. Then I remembered I was 40 years old. I turned the screen toward her. I got the apartment. She was standing at the counter slicing an apple. The knife stopped halfway through. Where? I told her. That's almost 40 minutes. 38. In good traffic. I timed it during rush hour. So you chose a place as far away as possible. I viewed one farther. Her eyes flashed. Was that supposed to comfort me? No. She set the knife down. One apple half rolled onto its cut side. What day? 2 Saturdays from now. That's sooner than 3 weeks. It's 19 days from dinner. You counted. Yes. She looked around the kitchen as if checking whether the walls had heard. What am I supposed to do? The answer was waiting in the binder beside the front door. It had been there all week. Caleb had stepped around it twice when he came to take Mom to lunch on Thursday. He never picked it up. You have choices, I said. You can stay here and let Caleb share the work. You can hire help for some things. You can start looking at the apartments near June like Dad asked. Her mouth tightened at his name being used against her. And if I don't want any of those choices, then you'll have to come up with another one. I want you to stay. That isn't a plan for your life. It's a plan for mine. The apple knife gleamed between us. Mom took Dad's cardigan from the back of her chair and wrapped it around herself. I won't ask you for anything, she said. You can live here like a tenant. You can work, go out, do whatever you want. I won't interfere, Mom. I mean it. The pharmacy called me yesterday because you listed my number. I can change that. You asked me to tighten the lid on the jam this morning. My hands hurt. I know. That's why pretending you need nothing won't work. She looked down at her hands. The anger drained out of her face, leaving something worse. I thought you loved being needed, she said. For a second, I saw exactly how we had arrived here. Not through one decision. Through thousands of moments when I had mistaken usefulness for closeness, and they had been happy to let me. I did, I said, until it was the only way anybody loved me. Mom's head came up. I closed the laptop before she could answer. On my way upstairs, I passed the binder. I moved it from beside the front door to the middle of the hallway. Caleb was going to take it eventually, even if I had to put it in Dad's truck myself. Caleb nearly tripped over the binder when he came in Thursday evening. He caught himself against the wall and looked down at it. Why is this here? Because subtlety failed. Mom was in the living room watching a game show with the volume too high. She turned it down one click. Caleb picked up the binder. What do you expect me to do with this? Read it. All 300 pages? It's 212. That isn't better. The first section is contacts. The second is Mom's medical information. The third is the house. The tabs have labels. He flipped it open. Why do I need Dad's treatment notes? You don't. That section is marked archived. Then why include it? Because he existed. Mom muted the television. Caleb lowered his voice. I came to talk about the apartment. I already rented it. You signed a lease? Yes. Without discussing it with anybody? I discussed it with the leasing agent. You know what I mean. I don't require family approval to move. No one said approval. You said without discussing it, as if the family has to review my address. He carried the binder into the kitchen, probably because it was easier to argue with me near counters. Mom followed us. I found 2 places closer, he said. One is 8 minutes away. The other is 12. I'm not moving 8 minutes away. Why not? Because that would turn every request into, you're already nearby. You think Mom is going to abuse your proximity? Mom inhaled. I didn't say abuse. You implied it. Caleb, Mom said weakly. He looked at her and softened at once. Sorry, Mom, but she's talking about you like you're a burden. I'm talking about a pattern. You call everything a pattern when it gives you permission to stay angry, and you call everything family when you want it for free. The game show audience applauded from the other room. Mom had accidentally unmuted the television. She pressed the remote until the screen went black. I don't want to be the reason you two hate each other, she said. We don't hate each other, Caleb told her. He looked at me for confirmation. I said, we don't know each other well enough. That hurt him. I saw it before he covered it with a laugh. We grew up in the same house. You left at 19. Since then, most of what you know about me comes from Mom telling you whether I'm being helpful. That's not true. What do I do at work? His mouth opened. I waited. You're in benefits, insurance claims. That's basically benefits. I review commercial claims for manufacturing companies. Fine. I don't know your exact title. I don't have an exact title. I told you what I do. Mom stepped between us even though we were 6 feet apart. Caleb, could you tighten the loose handle on the downstairs bathroom cabinet? He looked startled. Right now? It keeps coming off. Do you have a screwdriver? Garage. He checked his watch. I didn't smile. That would have rescued him by turning the moment into a joke. I have a dinner thing with Sarah, he said. Mom nodded too quickly. Of course. I can come by Saturday. I'll do it, I said. Both of them looked at me. Then I heard myself. No, I said. Actually, Caleb will do it Saturday. Mom looked embarrassed for him. It's only a handle. Then Saturday should be plenty of time. Caleb picked up the binder. Fine. He carried it toward the door. I followed to make sure he didn't set it down again. Dad's truck was parked at the curb. Caleb opened the passenger door and placed the binder on the seat, where it looked small despite its size. Happy? He asked, deeply. You know I would help if you asked normally. I've been asking normally for years. When? Exactly. He shut the door harder than necessary. Saturday came and went without the cabinet handle being tightened. Caleb texted Mom that something had come up at work. It was a Saturday. He sold flooring. Mom asked me where the screwdriver was. In the garage. She stared at me. I'm not hiding it. Never mind. On Sunday, June arrived with flattened boxes, packing tape, and a marker attached to a string around her neck. You look like a warehouse employee, I said. I dressed for morale. Mom watched us assemble boxes in the dining room. You don't need to pack the good towels, she told me. They're mine. I bought them. For my 35th birthday. I thought they were for the guest room. They were wrapped. That doesn't mean they can't be used here, June wrote Erin, towels across the box. Mom crossed her arms. You don't have to take that tone, June. I'm using block letters. Packing turned the house into an argument over ownership. Mom wanted me to take the lamp from my bedroom but not the nightstand beneath it because they had been purchased at different times. She insisted I take the set of green dishes from my old apartment, though she'd used 2 of the bowls for plant saucers. She put Dad's Navy hardware store mug into one of my kitchen boxes, then removed it 10 minutes later. "He always drank from this," she said. "I know. I thought you'd want it. I do." "Then maybe you should have it." She put it back. Later, I found it on the counter. By Wednesday, 6 relatives had called me. Cousin Ann from New Mexico said Mom had sounded lost. Dad's cousin Robert asked whether 40 minutes was really necessary. Aunt Patricia, who had visited Dad once during his illness, told me caregiving was a blessing I would miss when it was gone. I asked how often she planned to visit Mom. The call ended soon after that. June heard about the calls and offered to start answering them herself. "No," I said. "I don't need you fighting everybody for me." "Apparently you do. I need one person in this family to let me handle my own life." She drew back. The hurt in her face made me want to apologize, but I was tired of apologizing whenever someone's attempt to help felt too much like taking over. "I'm not Caleb," she said. "I know. Do you? That's not the same as saying you're always right. I never said I was. You refused to sign one page, and now you act like that makes you the only person who sees me." June set down the roll of tape. Mom was upstairs. The house seemed to hold its breath anyway. "You're right," June said. I had prepared myself for defense, not agreement. She picked up her purse. "I'll come back Saturday for the move. You don't have to leave. I think I do." After the door closed, I stared at the half-packed box between us. The marker was still hanging from the chair where she had left it. Moving day arrived cold and bright. Sarah came at 8 with coffee and old hotel laundry carts she had borrowed from work. June came at 8:15 with work gloves and did not mention our argument. Caleb texted at 8:23 that he had an urgent client situation and would arrive by 11. Mom sat in Dad's recliner wearing his cardigan. Every time I carried a box past her, she said, "Be careful," even when it contained pillows. Sarah rolled one of the carts down the front walk. "These are much easier than carrying." "Are they stolen?" I asked. "Borrowed." "Does the hotel know?" "The hotel knows many things." June snorted. At 10, the rental truck was half full. At 11, Caleb texted that he was wrapping up. At noon, Sarah called him. "You said 11, she told him. I couldn't hear his response. "No, I understand clocks," she said. "I don't understand why your sister is carrying a bookcase while you're discussing carpet samples." A pause. "Then disappoint the client." She ended the call. "He'll be here soon," she said. June and I exchanged a look. "He won't," Sarah said, "but I'm trying something new where I state my expectations aloud." Mom stood from the recliner. "This fighting is because of me." "No," I said. "It started when your father died. It started before any of us noticed." She pulled Dad's cardigan tighter. "I wish I had never asked you to come home. The sentence was meant to hurt me and protect her at the same time." "I don't," I said. "I'm glad I was here for Dad, but not for me. I was here for you, too." Past tense. Mom. She turned away. Sarah suddenly became very interested in securing a lamp with blankets. Caleb arrived at 1:46 after the last box was loaded. He stepped out of Dad's truck wearing clean jeans and expensive loafers. "Looks like you got most of it," he said. Sarah walked past him without speaking. He looked at me. "Where do you need me?" "You can tighten the bathroom cabinet handle." Mom said, "Aaron, what? It's Saturday." June laughed so hard she had to lean against the rental truck. Even Mom's mouth moved before she stopped it. Caleb did not laugh. He found the screwdriver and fixed the handle while the rest of us drove to my apartment. The place looked smaller with boxes stacked against every wall. The beige carpet had been freshly vacuumed, leaving stripes that disappeared under our shoes. Sarah set up my coffee maker. June assembled the bed frame. Mom stood in the west-facing window and looked down at the parking lot. "You can see the dumpsters," she said. "Only if I look left." "The hallway smells like someone's dinner. It's an apartment building." The bedroom is small. It fits a bed. She turned from the window. You really want this? Sunlight stretched across the floor behind her. Yes. Her face folded, but she nodded. When everyone left, the silence was so complete I could hear the refrigerator cycling in the kitchen. I unpacked one plate, one glass, one fork, and Dad's navy mug. Mom had put it back in my box after all. I made tea and sat on the floor because the couch wouldn't be delivered until Tuesday. At 10:17, Mom called. I watched the phone ring. On the fourth ring, I answered. I can't find the blue pill container, she said. It's beside the toaster. No, it isn't. Check the cabinet above the coffee maker. Why would it be there? Because you moved it when the flowers came. She opened a cabinet. I heard dishes shift. Oh, she said. There it is. Neither of us hung up. In the silence, my new dishwasher made a settling pop. Mom whispered, I don't like this. I closed my eyes. I know. After the call, I turned off my phone and got into bed. At 2 a.m, I woke certain I had heard Dad's oxygen alarm. I ran halfway across the apartment before remembering there was no oxygen machine. There was no Dad. There was no Mom sleeping down the hall. Only boxes, west-facing windows, and a silence I had wanted so badly that I didn't yet know how to survive it. The messages were waiting when I turned my phone on in the morning. Mom, I found the pills. Don't worry. Mom, your brother says the blue container should not be in a cabinet. Caleb, call me when you're awake. Caleb, Mom had a rough night. Caleb, we need to figure out a better system. I set the phone face down and made coffee in Dad's mug. The apartment looked bruised in morning light. Boxes lined the walls. The bed frame June assembled had one corner slightly higher than the others, and my shower curtain hung from only 10 rings because I had misplaced the other 2. But when I opened the refrigerator, everything inside belonged to me. 1 carton of eggs, yogurt, half and half, a bottle of wine. Nobody had moved anything because they thought another shelf made more sense. I drank my coffee beside the west-facing window and let Caleb wait. At 9, I called Mom. How did you sleep? Poorly. Me too. Caleb says the pill container should be somewhere more obvious. It has been beside the toaster for 8 months. That was when you were there. The toaster didn't move. She was quiet. I heard a cabinet open on her end. What are you doing? I asked. Nothing. Mom, I'm making toast. The word sounded accusatory. Good. Do you want me to call you when I take the pills? No, I want you to take them with breakfast like you always do. I thought you wanted to know. You can tell me when we talk in the evening. So we're scheduling phone calls now? Yes. There. I had said it. She breathed into the phone for a few seconds. What time? 7. What if something happens before 7? Call Caleb. What if he's working? He'll figure it out. He can't always answer. Neither can I. She said, of course, in the tone people use when they mean the opposite, then told me she had to save her toast from burning. Caleb called 2 minutes later. I answered because I wanted the sequence to end. You told her to call me for emergencies, he said. You're welcome. I have client meetings all day. Then put your phone on vibrate. I can't leave in the middle of a presentation. I left meetings for 14 months. You worked from the house, 3 days a week, and your company was flexible because I used vacation time, made up hours at night, and accepted less visible projects. He went quiet. That was the first time I had told him the cost in language he understood, not sleep or loneliness, work. I didn't know that, he said. You didn't ask. Fine. We need a backup. We have one. June. We can't dump everything on June. The irony was so complete that I checked the phone to make sure he was actually the person speaking. Call her, I said. Ask what she's willing to do. Don't assign it. What about Sarah? Ask her, too. You're really washing your hands of this. No. I'm speaking to Mom at 7. I'll take her to Wednesday appointments for the next month while you learn the medical information. I'll come to dinner once a week if she wants me there. That's what I'm offering. She needs more. Then you need more help. I'm not paying some stranger to sit with my mother. Mom doesn't need anyone to sit with her. She needs help with errands and the house. She's grieving. So am I. He exhaled. You know what I mean. I did. Her grief required service. Mine required better time management. I have to work, I said. So do I. I ended the call before he could hear me laugh. My couch arrived Tuesday. The delivery men placed it against the wrong wall, and I left it there because I like not having to defend the decision. I worked from the small dining table with my laptop facing the windows. At 5, I closed it and realized I had gone 9 hours without hearing my name spoken aloud. The silence no longer felt peaceful. It felt watchful. I put on music. Then I turned it off because the bass sounded like the oxygen concentrator starting in another room. At 7, I called Mom. She answered on the first ring. Caleb bought groceries, she said. That's good. He bought 12 individual yogurts. You eat yogurt, not key lime. Did you give him a list? I said yogurt. The next time say vanilla. Your father knew what kind. Dad once ate dog biscuits because he thought they were fiber crackers. She laughed before she could stop herself. I smiled into the phone. He said they were stale, she said. They were shaped like bones. He thought that was a marketing gimmick. For 5 minutes, she sounded like my mother instead of my responsibility. She told me about a condolence card from Dad's old supervisor and a blue jay that had been attacking the kitchen window. Then she said, "The porch railing is worse. Did you tell Caleb? He says he's getting estimates. Good. It wobbles. Use the back door. The back walk is uneven. Then tell Caleb it needs to be done this week. You know the handyman's number. It's in the binder." The warmth vanished from her voice. "I'll ask him," she said. I almost gave her the number. I knew it without looking. Dennis Cole, last 4 digits 4816. His wife had recently had knee surgery. He preferred texts because he couldn't hear well on the phone. I bit the inside of my cheek until the impulse passed. "Wednesday at 6? I asked. "If you want." "I do. Then I'll make meatloaf. You don't have to cook. I still know how." "I know." We hung up stiffly, but we had laughed once. I decided that counted. June came over Thursday carrying a small toolbox and 2 shower curtain rings. I didn't tell you I needed those. Sarah did. Why is Sarah reporting on my curtain? She noticed when she helped move you. So the family has a shower curtain task force. June handed me the rings. You can use them or throw them off the balcony. I don't have a balcony. I know. I was making a point. She found the uneven corner of the bed and fixed it with a felt pad from her toolbox. Then she sat on the floor because I had not yet unpacked the dining chairs. I sat across from her. "I'm sorry I snapped at you," I said. "You weren't wrong. I can be right and still be rude. Frank taught you that." I looked at her. She opened the toolbox again, though there was nothing left to fix. He could argue a correct point until everybody wanted him to be wrong. That sounds like me. It sounds like several people in this family. She closed the lid. "I should have said something years ago," she told me. "About what?" "You." The answer irritated me before she explained it. "I'm not a charity case, June." "I know. That isn't what I mean." She looked toward the windows. Afternoon light lay across the carpet between us. "When Caleb forgot your mother's birthday, you bought a second card and signed his name. I was 24. I knew. I joked that you were saving his life again. He was in Denver for work. He had telephones in Denver. I said nothing. When Frank was recovering from his first knee surgery, you used your vacation days. Caleb came on Sunday with a deli tray and everyone praised him for feeding the family. The sandwiches were good. That's what I said then." A laugh escaped me, but it hurt. June leaned back against the wall. "At your father's retirement party, your mother got anxious because the caterer was late. You spent the first hour in the kitchen. Caleb gave the toast. I saw all of it. I called you dependable like it was a compliment instead of an excuse. You did help with Dad. Every Thursday. You brought soup, and then I went home. Everybody had a home to go to except me." "Yes." Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. Refusing to sign that page was the first time I stood up in the room and made them hear me. I would love for that to make me brave. Mostly, it proves how long I was quiet. The apology did not repair anything. It did something smaller and stranger. It made room for my anger without asking me to put it away. Dad waited too, I said. June nodded. Why? Because telling Diane she couldn't stay in the house would have made her angry. Telling Caleb to take over would have made him defensive. Telling you to keep going was always easier, so his last request was guilt. It was regret. That's generous. It can be both. I picked at a loose thread in the carpet. He saw it, I said, at least at the end. Yes, but he still made it my job to enforce. June's mouth tightened. Yes, that was the piece I had not wanted to touch. Dad's final defense of me had still required me to withstand the family he had trained to lean. June reached for my hand, then stopped before touching it. What do you need from me? She asked. Don't carry messages. From Diane? Or Caleb? Don't tell me Mom sounds sad, so I'll call. Don't tell them I sound guilty, so they'll push. If you help her, decide what you can give and give that. Don't make me manage it. She nodded. All right. And don't keep telling me about the page. Her eyebrows lifted. I know what he said. All right. I held out my hand. She took it. Wednesday dinner smelled like meatloaf and scorched onions. Mom had set 2 places at the kitchen table instead of using the dining room. Dad's chair was empty. I kissed her cheek and placed a small bag of vanilla yogurt in the refrigerator. I thought Caleb was buying groceries, she said. He bought key lime. You told me to make a list, did you? She pointed to the counter. The list was written in her careful cursive. Milk, bread, vanilla yogurt, bananas not green, chicken breasts, laundry soap, blue bottle. I texted him a picture, she said. Good. He said he'll go Friday. I sat down. We made it through dinner without discussing my apartment. Mom told me Caleb had agreed to take her to a follow-up appointment on Monday. She complained that June's soup had too much rosemary. I told her June believed rosemary was a personality. Afterward, Mom handed me a container of leftovers. I accepted it. At the door, she touched my sleeve. The house makes noises now. It always made noises. I didn't hear them when you were here. I waited. Could you stay tonight? She asked. Everything in me moved toward yes. Then I saw Dad's gray cardigan on her shoulders and my overnight bag no longer waiting by the stairs. No, I said softly, but I can sit with you another half hour. Her hand dropped. Half an hour. Yes. She wanted all night. I could give 30 minutes. For once, I let the difference belong to her. During those 30 minutes, Mom asked me to check whether the front door was locked, carry the meatloaf pan to the refrigerator, and look at a spot on the ceiling she believed had grown since Tuesday. I did the first 2. For the ceiling, I stood beneath it and said, "Take a picture tonight. Compare it tomorrow. You're already standing there. I can't diagnose plaster by looking. You used to. I used to say, that's probably nothing, and then call someone. So call someone." Caleb has the binder. Her mouth thinned. At the 30-minute mark, I put on my coat. You're watching the clock? Yes, that feels cold. It's how I make sure half an hour doesn't become morning. She walked me to the door without answering. I hugged her. She stayed stiff for the first second, then held me hard enough that my chin pressed into her shoulder. On the drive home, I cried so suddenly I had to pull into a pharmacy parking lot. I sat beneath the red glow of its sign with my hands locked around the steering wheel, grieving Dad, Mom, the house, and the version of myself who would have gone upstairs for pajamas instead of leaving. Then I drove home anyway. Caleb was supposed to take Mom to her follow-up appointment Monday at 1:30. At 1:12, she called me. He isn't here. Did you call him? Twice. What did he say? He didn't answer. Call Sarah. I don't want to involve Sarah in personal things. Sarah is married to the person who volunteered. She has a job. So does Caleb. And so do you, Mom said softly. I closed my eyes. My laptop screen showed a claim report I had been trying to finish for 40 minutes. The same paragraph had moved in and out of focus while I listened to Mom breathe. You need to leave in 5 minutes, I said. Call the clinic and tell them you may be late. How am I getting there? Cab, rideshare, June, Sarah. I don't use rideshare. You have 4 options. Aaron. The name held the whole old arrangement. I'm working. I know. I can't come. She hung up. My phone rang again before I could put it down. Caleb. I'm stuck at a client site, he said. Mom's appointment is in 15 minutes. I know. That's why I'm calling. No, you're calling because you want me to take her. Can you? No. A pause. Seriously? Yes. It's medical. It's a routine follow-up. That makes it okay to let her miss it? You're letting her miss it. I'm in a conference room across town. I'm at work. You're at home. I am not at home. I'm in my apartment. Working. Same difference. Not to my employer. He lowered his voice. The client changed the meeting time. Then you should have told Mom. I thought I could make it. You didn't. What do you want me to do? Walk out? Yes. That isn't realistic. It was realistic when I did it. He breathed hard through his nose. Fine, he said. I'll call Sarah. You do that. Sarah reached Mom at 1:21 and got her to the clinic 14 minutes late. The doctor still saw her. I learned this from Sarah, not Caleb. Her text said, "She's fine, angry. I'm taking her to lunch before I go back." I typed, "Thank you." Then deleted it because thanking Sarah made it sound like she had done me a favor instead of fulfilling a need in the family she had married into. I typed, "I'm glad she got there. Are you okay missing work?" Sarah replied. "Caleb will cover my evening hotel inspection?" I stared at that sentence. Then another message appeared. He does not know yet. I laughed loud enough to startle myself. At 7, Mom didn't answer my call. I tried again at 7:10. At 7:20, she picked up. "I was in the bathroom," she said. "How was the appointment?" "Fine. What did the doctor say?" "You would know if you'd been there." I sat on my new couch and looked at a lamp I still had not plugged in. "You can be angry. I'm not angry." Okay. I was humiliated. Why? I had to call Sarah out of work. You didn't call her. Caleb did. Because you refused. Because Caleb failed. She went silent. There were truths my mother treated like impolite guests. She could not throw them out, so she stood in the doorway hoping they would leave on their own. He tried, she said finally. He promised. He was working. So was Sarah. That's between them. No, Mom. That's the whole system. Caleb makes a promise. A woman covers it and his intention stays spotless. That is an ugly way to describe your brother. It was an ugly afternoon. She hung up. On Wednesday, I found the porch railing in pieces. 2 boards leaned against the front steps. A coffee can full of screws sat on the porch. The remaining rail had been wrapped in orange extension cord to keep it upright. I used the back door. Mom was rolling meatballs at the kitchen counter. Dad's cardigan sleeves were pushed above her elbows, and flour streaked one cheek. What happened to the porch? Caleb is fixing it. When? He worked on it all Saturday. It's less of a railing than it was Friday. The wood underneath was rotten, which is why Dennis should do it. Dennis quoted $900. For the railing and the damaged post, Caleb says that's outrageous. Caleb sells flooring. He doesn't build porches. Your father taught him. Dad also taught him to change his oil, and the truck was 4,000 miles overdue. She pressed a meatball between her palms. You look for reasons he'll fail. I don't have to look. They're tied together with an orange cord. Caleb arrived 20 minutes later carrying a folder and wearing his sales meeting clothes. No work clothes? I asked. What? The railing. I'm waiting for lumber. Where is it coming from, Oregon? He set the folder on the table. Can we not start? Did you read the binder? Most of it. What kind of yogurt does Mom eat? He looked at her. Vanilla, she said. That isn't fair, she told me. Yes, I said. Recently. Sarah came in behind him carrying the correct laundry soap and a bag of bananas with no green on them. I read the grocery list, she said. Caleb ignored that. We ate at the kitchen table. Mom had invited them without telling me, which meant Wednesday dinner had already begun expanding into family management night. Afterward, Caleb opened the folder. "I've been thinking about how to make this work." "What work?" I asked. "Mom staying here without you feeling taken advantage of." Mom looked uncomfortable. "I never said she was taken advantage of. No one's blaming you." That was how he always began blaming me. He slid a sheet across the table. It wasn't color-coded this time. At the top, he had written family care arrangement. Sarah did not reach for it. Caleb continued. "Mom could compensate you for the time you spend helping, a monthly amount. That way it's not just expected." "How much?" He looked relieved that I had asked. $400. June's rosemary soup cost more than that over a month. "What does $400 buy?" I asked. "Don't say it like that. You called it compensation. It would cover groceries and gas. Those are expenses, not time. We're not hiring a nurse." "Good, because I'm not a nurse." "Obviously. What hours do you expect for $400? He looked at Mom again. She wiped invisible crumbs from the table. "Maybe 3 evenings during the week," Caleb said. "Appointments as needed, helping around the house. And overnight emergencies? You're 38 minutes away." That didn't answer me. We'd figure it out. Who is we? All of us. Meaning me. He leaned back. "Nothing is good enough for you." "Correct. $400 to rebuild the same arrangement is not good enough. It's more than zero, which is what you're paying Sarah for leaving work Monday." Sarah's head lifted. Caleb's voice sharpened. "Leave my marriage out of this. You put your wife on the schedule. I didn't volunteer her. You call her when you fail. That happened once." Sarah folded her hands. "It happened Monday." He turned to her. "Whose side are you on?" Mom stood so quickly her chair struck the wall. There are no sides. We all went quiet. She looked at the paper, then at me. "I could afford more," she said. "The offer hurt worse coming from her. This isn't about the amount. You said your work suffered. Dad was dying. And now I'm alive," she said. The sentence stunned the room. Mom's eyes filled, but she kept going. "I am alive, and I still need things. I'm sorry that's inconvenient. I'm sorry my hands hurt and I hate driving and your father did everything outside this house without teaching me. I'm sorry I don't want to move into an apartment where everybody will look at me and know I'm the widow in 3B. Nobody moved." Then she looked at Caleb. "And I'm sorry your sister is right about you." His face emptied. Mom gripped the table. "You made that promise in church. You told everyone I would be safe. But you didn't come Monday. You took the railing apart. You bring plans and leave them here. Mom, I don't want another plan." It was not an apology to me. It was not permission to leave. But it was the first crack in the story Caleb had written. He closed the folder. Sarah stood and collected her purse. "I'll meet you at home," she told him. Caleb looked as if she had slapped him. After they left separately, Mom began washing dishes with jerky, furious movements. I dried. Neither of us mentioned the $400. When I carried the trash to the utility room, I heard a metallic knocking inside the wall. The copper pipe near the laundry sink trembled when the washing machine drained. A dark ring stained the drywall around the shut-off valve. I took a picture. "This needs a plumber," I told Mom. "Is it leaking?" "Not yet." "The valve is corroded. Can it wait until morning?" "Yes, but not for weeks." I texted the photograph to Caleb and copied Sarah. "The binder lists 2 plumbers. Call one tomorrow." "This needs to be checked before the cold snap," Caleb replied 3 minutes later. "I'll handle it." Mom read the message over my shoulder. "See?" she said. I looked at the dark ring around the pipe. "I hope so. He did not handle it." On Thursday, Mom told me Caleb had contacted someone. On Friday, she said the plumber was backed up. When I asked which plumber, she said, "The one from the binder." "What's his name? Do I need to interrogate your brother?" "No, I'm asking whether he made the call." "He said he did." Caleb didn't answer my text. The temperature dropped Friday night. Wind rattled the bedroom windows in my apartment, and the weather alert on my phone warned that exposed pipes could freeze. I thought about the dark ring around the laundry room valve. I texted Caleb again. "Did someone inspect that pipe?" He replied 40 minutes later. "Appointment next week. It's fine." I typed, "Did a plumber say it's fine?" Then I deleted it. He had the photograph. He had the binder. Mom had heard the warning. If I kept checking, "I'll handle it" would continue to mean Aaron will notice if I don't. I put my phone on the nightstand and tried to sleep. At 6:18 Saturday morning, Mom called. "There's water." I sat up. "Where?" "The laundry room. It's coming from the wall." "How much?" "I don't know. Enough." "Is it spraying?" "Not exactly. Running." The towels are soaked. My feet were already on the floor. That was how fast my body betrayed my decisions. "Go to the basement door," I said. "I'm not going into the basement. The main shutoff is at the bottom of the stairs, on the wall to your right. I can't manage those stairs when they're dry." She was right. "Okay, stay out of the water. Don't touch the washing machine or outlets. I know not to touch an outlet." "Call Caleb." I did. He isn't answering. Of course. I pulled on jeans with the phone wedged against my shoulder. Then I stopped. My car keys were on the kitchen counter. 38 minutes away, longer if the roads had ice. By the time I arrived, the water would still be running, and I would still need a plumber. "Mom, listen to me. I'm calling an emergency service. Put a bucket under the worst spot if you can do it without slipping. Then wait in the kitchen. You're coming? I'm getting someone there." That wasn't my question. I closed my eyes. "No. Not yet." Her breathing changed. "Not yet," I repeated, "because a plumber can stop the water and I can't. You know where everything is. So does the binder. Your brother took it. Then he can bring it." She hung up. I called Dennis Cole. He answered on the fourth ring, sounding as if he had been awake for hours. "Dennis, it's Aaron Walsh, Frank's daughter. I heard about your dad." "Sorry, Aaron, thank you. There's a leaking pipe at Mom's house in the laundry room wall near the washer shutoff. The water's running steadily. I don't do plumbing." "I know. Who do you trust?" He gave me a number for a man named Gabe and said to mention his name. Gabe could arrive in 40 minutes. Then I called Caleb. He answered with a whisper. "What's wrong?" "The pipe is leaking." "What pipe?" "The one in the picture." "Did Mom call a plumber?" "I did. Where are you?" "My apartment." A pause. "You're not going over. Gabe will be there in 40 minutes. You need to go make sure she's okay. She's in the kitchen. The water is contained in the utility room. How do you know?" "Because I asked questions before announcing solutions." His voice sharpened. "Sarah and I are 2 hours away." "Where?" "We went to Lake Marshall." I remembered Sarah mentioning an anniversary trip they had postponed twice during Dad's illness. They had left Friday afternoon. There was nothing wrong with them going. There was something wrong with Caleb promising a plumber had handled the pipe before he went. "Turn around," I said. "We just got here last night. Then you've seen the lake." "Aaron, you told Mom and me you handled it. I scheduled someone for next week. That's when they could come." "Did you tell them the valve was corroded and the wall was stained?" "I said it needed checking. Did they see the picture?" "No. So you did the least urgent version of the task and called it handled." Sarah's voice came through in the background. "What happened?" Caleb covered the phone, but I heard enough. "The laundry pipe," he told her. "The one Aaron sent?" A rustle. Then Sarah's voice closer. "Didn't you say someone checked it?" "I said someone was scheduled. You said it was handled." I almost felt sorry for him. "Almost." "I've called the plumber," I said. "Gabe." Dennis recommended him. "His number is in your text messages. Mom needs someone there during the repair, and there are wet boxes to move." "We're leaving now," Sarah said. The call ended. I sat on the edge of the bed wearing jeans and one sock. Every nerve in my body insisted I should be driving to the house. I pictured Mom slipping on wet tile, water creeping toward an outlet, the ceiling collapsing, all because I had decided to prove a point. I called her. No answer. I called again. She picked up on the third try. "The plumber is here," she said. I could hear a man talking in the background. Are you okay? I'm in the kitchen. Did you slip? No. Is the water off? He's doing that now. Caleb and Sarah are coming. How far? About 2 hours. Silence. They went away, she said. For the night? Your father would never have gone away with that pipe-making noise. Dad would have called somebody Wednesday. She didn't answer. I can come if you need me, I said. The words escaped before I could catch them. Mom took a breath. Then, to my surprise, she said, No, the plumber is here. My shoulders dropped. Call me when you know what happened. You already know. The house is falling apart. It's a leaking pipe. It's the railing, the ceiling spot, the gutters. That noise in the furnace. What furnace noise? Nothing. Mom? Go back to sleep, Erin. She hung up. I did not go back to sleep. Gabe texted a photograph an hour later because Mom had given him my number. The connection behind the washer valve had been leaking inside the wall. The cold had worsened it, but the pipe had not frozen. He shut off the water, replaced the connection, and opened a rectangle of drywall so the inside could dry. It was inconvenient, wet, and expensive. It was not a catastrophe. My body still felt as if I had narrowly survived one. At 10:15, Caleb sent a message to the family group. Water stopped. Getting fans. Some ceiling damage below utility room. Mom coming to stay with us until dry. June replied, Diane is staying with me. Caleb, we already discussed it. June, you discussed it with yourself. Mom, I'm going to June's. I read that line twice. Mom had never stayed in June's condominium. She said the guest room was cramped and the parking lot was confusing. More important, staying with June meant going near the apartment complex Dad had named. Caleb called me. Did you tell Mom to go with June? No, she needs to be with us. Why? Because we're closer to the house. June is 15 minutes farther. We have more room. You have one guest room. So does June. I heard boards moving in the background. Are you at the house? Yes. The whole utility room is torn apart. A rectangle of drywall was opened. The ceiling below is damaged. You'll survive. That's easy for you to say. Yes. He ignored that. Mom's acting like I caused this. You didn't cause the leak. Thank you. You ignored it. I made the appointment. Next week, you ignored it too. The accusation found its target because it was partly true. I had seen the pipe. I knew the danger. The old version of me would have called Gabe Wednesday, coordinated the visit, paid the bill from Mom's account, and texted Caleb afterward. The leak would never have happened. That did not make it my fault. I had to repeat that silently before I could speak. I warned you and Mom. You said you were handling it. You knew I might not understand the urgency. You're 42, Caleb. 43. Then you've had an extra year. He swore and ended the call. I drove to June's that afternoon, not because anyone asked me to, but because I wanted to see Mom. Her overnight bag sat in June's narrow hallway. Dad's cardigan hung on a hook beside June's red raincoat. Mom was at the kitchen counter drinking tea from a cup that said, "Wine is cheaper than therapy." "I hate this mug," she said. "June has 6 identical ones. They were a gift." "From whom?" "Me," June said from the sink. Mom looked tired but not shattered. She had changed into clean slacks and a cream sweater. Without Dad's cardigan, she appeared smaller and more like herself. I kissed her cheek. "You didn't come this morning," she said. "No. The plumber did. Yes. He was very kind. Good." She turned the mug so the words faced away from her. Caleb got wet moving the boxes. "That's unfortunate. He ruined his loafers. Tragic." Her mouth twitched. June brought me tea in a normal mug. "They're running fans at the house through Monday," she said. "Gabe wants the wall dry before it's closed. Who's checking the fans?" "Caleb." Mom lifted an eyebrow. "Sarah." We all laughed. It was the first time Mom had included herself in a joke about him. The laugh faded, but something remained. She looked around June's kitchen. The condominium was less than half the size of the house, with one level, wide doorways, and a laundry closet 10 steps from where we sat. June's groceries fit into 6 cabinets. Her bills were stacked in one basket instead of spread across Dad's office. "This place is too small," Mom said. It's big enough for me, June replied. You never had all the things Frank and I have. No, I threw out my broken toaster instead of preserving it for future generations. Frank could have fixed that toaster. He said he could. Mom looked into her tea. What are those apartments like? She asked. June didn't pretend not to understand. Quiet, mostly people our age. Some couples, some single. They have elevators and a shuttle twice a week. I don't need a shuttle. Then don't use it. Do they allow people to bring their own furniture? No, Diane, they force everyone to sit on milk crates. Mom gave her a look. I held my mug with both hands and said nothing. Could we drive through? Mom asked. Not a tour, just past them. June glanced at me. I looked away. Sure, she said, whenever you want. Tomorrow, maybe. All right. Mom turned to me. This doesn't mean I'm moving. I know. I'm only looking. I know. She seemed irritated that I had not pushed, then relieved. My phone buzzed with a photograph from Sarah. Caleb stood in Mom's utility room wearing old sweatpants, wet socks, and a dust mask. He held a roll of insulation in the wrong direction. Behind him, 3 soaked storage boxes sagged open. The caption said, "Major responsibilities." I laughed. Mom asked to see. I handed her the phone. She studied the picture of her son for a long moment. He looks like your father, she said. For once, it wasn't praise. Mom asked me to come on the drive. June was holding her car keys, and I was rinsing our teacups. You don't have to, Mom added. I looked at June. She shrugged as if apartment tours happened accidentally all the time. All right, I said. It's only a drive. I heard you. We aren't going inside. Okay. On the way, Mom criticized June's driving, the road construction, and a newly painted pharmacy sign. Her attention sharpened as we turned onto the apartment complex's street. 3 brick buildings stood around a courtyard with bare maple trees and benches covered in frost. They were not beautiful. They also did not resemble the human filing cabinets Mom had described whenever anyone mentioned downsizing. June slowed near the entrance. Mom leaned forward between the seats. That one has balconies, Juliet balconies, June said. You can stand there, but you can't fit a chair. Then there are windows with opinions. I laughed. A woman in a red coat came out of the nearest building carrying a small trash bag. She waved at a man scraping ice from his windshield. Neither looked abandoned by society. Keep driving, Mom said. June drove around the courtyard. When we reached the exit, Mom said, You went too fast. I was doing 17. I couldn't see anything. June turned back into the lot. We drove around again. On the second pass, Mom noticed the covered drop-off near the main entrance and the ramp beside the stairs. On the third, she asked whether the balconies faced east or west. I don't know, June said. You live nearby. I haven't surveyed the sun. There's an office. We aren't going inside, I reminded Mom. She gave me an irritated look. I'm aware of what I said. June parked. The leasing office smelled like cinnamon air freshener. A woman named Marcy gave us brochures and explained that a 1-bedroom on the second floor would be available in April. Mom asked whether residents could choose their own cable company, whether the elevators had backup power, whether the walls were thin, and whether anyone would object to her keeping a sewing machine in the dining area. Marcy answered every question without once calling her sweetie. We can show you the model if you'd like, she said. Mom looked at me. I picked up a brochure and pretended to read. It would be silly to come this far and not see it, she said. Very silly, June agreed. The model apartment had cream walls, gray carpet, and furniture arranged with such aggressive neutrality that it looked as if no one had ever owned an ugly lamp. Mom opened every cabinet. The kitchen is small. You don't cook for 5 anymore, June said. I cook. You heat soup and criticize other people's rosemary. Mom ignored her. She stood at the bedroom window and looked toward the courtyard. The room was smaller than hers at the house, but not cramped. Sunlight reached the foot of the bed. The bathroom had a walk-in shower and grab bars Mom examined without touching. I don't need those, she said. I use mine to hang towels, Marcy replied. That pleased Mom. It let her treat the grab bars as storage instead of evidence. A resident passing the open doorway stopped. "New victim?" she asked. She was about Mom's age, with short white hair and a purple tracksuit. Marcy sighed. "Helen, this is Mrs. Walsh." "Diane," Mom said. "Helen. Second floor, end unit. Don't take the one above mine unless you walk quietly." "I don't stomp. Everybody says that before the first furniture rearrangement." Mom smiled despite herself. Helen looked at June. "You moving too? I own a condominium 15 minutes away. Then you're the emergency contact. My sister lives in Florida and sends me articles about vitamin D." She continued down the hall before any of us could answer. Mom watched her go. "She seemed bossy," she said. "You'd get along," June replied. Mom requested an application before we left. She folded it into her purse and told us 6 separate times that it meant nothing. At June's, Caleb was waiting in the parking lot beside Dad's truck. He got out before we had unfastened our seatbelts. "Where have you been?" Mom opened her door, looking at apartments. His eyes moved to me. I raised both hands. "Not my idea." "It was mine," Mom said. He helped her from the car, though she did not need help. "You're making decisions after one bad morning." "I drove through a parking lot. You went inside. I needed to use the bathroom." June snorted. Caleb took Mom's overnight bag. "The house is dry enough." Sarah opened the windows for an hour and the fans are still running. "Did Gabe say I could go back? He said it's safe. Did he close the wall?" "That's Monday. So there's a hole. It's covered with plastic." Mom looked toward June's building. Caleb's face softened. "Come home. I'll stay tonight." "You're staying?" "Yes." "What about tomorrow? I can work from Dad's office." Mom nodded, but she did not look reassured. We followed them to the house. The front railing was still tied with orange cord, so everyone used the back door. 2 industrial fans roared in the utility room. The cut wall had been covered with clear plastic that puffed in and out like lungs. Mom stood in the doorway and stared. "It smells damp." "That's why the fans are running," Caleb said. "Where are the boxes?" "Garage. They can't stay in the garage. It freezes. Most of it is old paperwork. It's your father's paperwork. We'll sort it." "Who?" The question silenced him. Sarah came downstairs carrying a laundry basket. She looked as if she had slept badly. "I washed what got wet," she told Mom. "Some towels are ruined." "Thank you." Caleb moved the boxes. Mom turned to him. "Thank you." He looked almost embarrassed by actual credit for actual work. I walked into the utility room and checked the repair without touching anything. The new valve was clean and bright against the old pipe. Water stains spread across the drywall below in brown-edged blooms. Mom came beside me. "How much do you think all this will cost?" "I don't know. You always know." "No, I usually make calls until I find out." She looked at the plastic-covered opening. "The apartment includes maintenance," she said. "Yes. I would still pay for it through rent." "Yes, so nothing is free." "No." She nodded, apparently comforted. "Caleb heard us. The house isn't falling apart because of one pipe." "No," Mom said. "It's falling apart in sections." "Mom, the roof is 14 years old. The back walk is uneven. That spot in the dining room ceiling is bigger. It isn't." I measured it. I looked at her. She gave me the smallest possible nod. Caleb set down the overnight bag. "Can we not make major decisions because of a plumbing repair? Your father wanted me to sell in the spring." His eyes moved to mine again. "I didn't say it," I told him. Mom took the folded apartment application from her purse and placed it on the kitchen counter. Caleb stared at it. "So this is happening," he said. "I'm considering it. Dad wanted you here." June had followed us in. She stood near the back door with her coat still buttoned. "No," she said. "You wrote that. Not this again." "Yes," Mom said. We all looked at her. She rested her fingertips on the application. "This again." Caleb's expression tightened. "Mom, you signed the page." "I know." He heard me read it. He was barely conscious. "You said he understood." "I said that because I wanted it to be true." The fans roared from the other room. Sarah slowly lowered the laundry basket to the floor. June reached into her purse, then stopped. The page was not there. It was still in her desk drawer where she had kept it since the night Dad died. For once, nobody needed to see it. Caleb looked at Mom as if she had changed languages. Then why did you sign? She glanced at me and looked away. I knew before she spoke. I had known in pieces, but not in words. Because I was afraid, she said. Of what? Caleb asked. Everything. That doesn't explain. I was afraid of Frank dying. I was afraid of the house without him. I was afraid I would wake up and not know who to call first. Her hand flattened against the application, and I knew if it was written the way he said it, Aaron would go. Nobody moved. Mom looked at me. You had never left while somebody needed you, she said. I thought if his request gave you permission, you might take it. My throat tightened. So you let Caleb change it. I told him staying in the house was what Frank really meant. Caleb shook his head. You said Dad was confused. He was confused sometimes. Not then, June said. Mom nodded. Not then. Caleb stepped back as if she had shifted the floor under him. You told me to write the practical version, and you wanted to. I was trying to help. You gave yourself decisions, Sarah said. You gave Aaron everything else. I thought that's what she preferred. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Based on what? You always take over. Because things don't get done. Maybe we stopped trying because you'd redo it anyway. That is a beautiful excuse. I'm not excusing anything. You rewrote a dying man's words, stood in church, and made a promise for me. He was my father, too. Yes. And for 1 minute, he saw what this family had done. You couldn't even let me have the minute. Caleb's face collapsed into anger because anger was easier to hold. You signed. I wrote that I received the page. You didn't object. Dad was dying. So you froze, and I'm the villain because I acted? June stepped forward. You acted for yourself. I kept Mom from panicking. For 10 days, Sarah said. Then you stopped coming. Caleb turned on her. Are you enjoying this? No. Her voice shook. I'm exhausted. Mom covered her mouth. The old version of me would have ended it there. Mom was crying. Caleb was cornered. Sarah looked ready to leave. June's anger had found oxygen. I would have changed the subject, assigned food, made everyone sit down. Instead, I stayed where I was. Mom lowered her hand. I'm sorry, she told me. It was not polished. It did not arrive with an explanation that removed her guilt. It sat between us, small and late. I thought I had wanted those words more than anything. They didn't make me feel better. You didn't trust that I could love you and still have a life, I said. I didn't think I could bear finding out, so you made sure I couldn't choose. She nodded once. I went anyway. I know. No, I went because you changed it. Dad asked you not to hold on to me that way, and you did it before he was even gone. Mom's face folded. I did not cross the room. She wiped her cheeks with both hands. I know that now. The fans shut off at the same time. A timer must have clicked somewhere, but the sudden silence felt deliberate. We could hear water moving through the pipes, a car passing outside, the faint tick of the kitchen clock. Caleb sat in Dad's chair. I didn't know you were planning to leave, he said. That was the point. I wasn't supposed to need a plan. I thought keeping things the same would help Mom. It helped you. He looked toward the utility room. For the first time, he did not answer. Mom pulled the apartment application closer. I want to see the available unit again, she said. The real one, not the model. Caleb rubbed his forehead. Can we wait a month? April is a month away. What about the house? We prepare it to sell. The words took something out of her. I saw it. Her shoulders lowered and she gripped the counter. June moved toward her, then paused. Mom looked at Caleb. Your father asked you to handle the repairs and the move. His head came up. You made a promise in church, she said. I think you should finally keep the part that was his. He looked at the open utility wall, the laundry basket, the application, and the orange cord visible through the back window. Then he nodded. Not graciously, not happily, but he nodded. Mom picked up the application and carried it upstairs. Nobody followed her. Caleb sat in Dad's chair with his elbows on his knees. Sarah collected the family care arrangement from the table, tore it once down the middle, and put both pieces in the trash. He watched her do it. "I spent time on that," he said. "I know," she replied. June turned the utility room fans back on. Their roar filled the space Dad's voice had occupied. I put on my coat. "Where are you going?" Caleb asked. "Home. We need to discuss the repairs. The binder has the plumbers, handyman, roofer, gutter company, furnace service, and the name of the woman who helped the Harrisons sell their house. You expect me to manage all of it?" I looked at him. He heard himself. "Right," he said. I promised. Mom came downstairs holding the completed first page of the application. She had changed out of Dad's cardigan. The apartment available in April was not the model. It had older carpet and a view of the parking lot instead of the courtyard. Mom disliked both until Marcy pointed out that the carpet would be replaced before move-in, and the parking lot view would let her see visitors arrive. "Not that I'll be watching," Mom said. "You'll be watching," June told her. The kitchen was narrower than the models. The bedroom had an east-facing window. Mom stood in the empty living room and used her hands to measure the length of an imaginary sofa. "My green one won't fit." "Your green sofa is 90 inches, I said. "This wall is 104. She looked at me. "How do you know?" "I measured the sofa last week." "Why?" "Because you were looking at apartments." A shadow crossed her face. "So you knew I would move." "No, I wanted you to have the information if you chose to." She walked to the window. Below us, Helen in the purple tracksuit was scraping ice from her car with what looked like a kitchen spatula. She glanced up, saw Mom, and waved the spatula. Mom waved back. "I'll take it," she told Marcy. Caleb flinched as though she had announced a move overseas. The next 6 weeks taught him more about our parents' house than 43 years of visiting it. Dennis repaired the porch while Caleb held boards, fetched tools, and discovered that helping was not the same as standing nearby, asking when something would be finished. Gabe closed the utility wall. A painter repaired the stained ceiling. The furnace noise turned out to be a loose panel that vibrated whenever the blower started. Caleb called me about every task at first. Dennis says the porch post needs replacing. Okay, did Dad ever mention that? No. Should I get another estimate? Ask Dennis. The painter wants to know the ceiling color, white. There are 6 whites on the card. Welcome to major decisions. He stopped calling after that. Sarah stopped rescuing him. When he promised Mom he would meet the gutter company at 8, she left for work at 7:30 and took her car. He had to drive Dad's truck through morning traffic, sit in the driveway, and listen while the crew explained that one downspout had been draining against the foundation for years. He texted me a photograph. "Did you know about this?" "No." "Dad did, apparently. There's a note in the binder." "Then handle it." He replied with a single check mark instead of a thumbs up. It was an improvement. Mom's house went on the market after the repairs. She complained that the rooms looked wrong without family photographs and accused the realtor of hating curtains. Every showing required her to leave for an hour, so June took her to lunch, Sarah brought her to the hotel cafe, and Caleb learned which afternoons she preferred to schedule appointments. I kept Wednesday dinner. Sometimes I brought food. Sometimes Mom cooked. Twice we ordered pizza because neither of us wanted to pretend meatloaf was emotional progress. She still asked for things. The difference was that she began hearing my answers. "Can you take me to the bank Friday?" "I'm working." "All right, I'll ask Caleb. Can you look at the apartment curtains with me?" "Saturday morning. Could we do afternoon?" "No." "All right. Morning." Every all right seemed to cost her something. It cost me something, too. I had spent years believing love meant removing inconvenience before the other person felt it. Now I had to watch her be disappointed and not treat disappointment like injury. June brought Dad's rewritten request to my apartment one evening in a plain brown envelope. I thought you weren't going to mention it again, I said. I'm not mentioning it. I'm delivering it. I don't want it. Neither do I. She laid the envelope on my coffee table. What am I supposed to do with it? Whatever you want. I opened it. Caleb's block letters looked even more deliberate than I remembered. Frank Walsh's wishes for Diane in the house. Mom's signature. Caleb's signature. My own notation beneath them, received by Aaron Walsh, 1:38, a.m. June's line, remained blank. The empty line was the only honest part of the page. I kept thinking this would be proof, I said. It proves he wrote it. It proves Mom signed it. It proves you didn't agree. I folded it back into the envelope. It doesn't prove Dad saw me. No. He did, though. Yes. Too late. June sat beside me on the couch. Also yes. I looked at the envelope for another minute, then tore it into narrow strips. June did not stop me. I placed the strips in the kitchen trash beneath coffee grounds and an empty yogurt container. I expected the act to feel bigger. It felt like throwing away paper. Dad's actual request survived without it. Mom was moving. Caleb was handling the work. I was sitting in my own apartment on a Thursday night with no one waiting for me to drive home. June poured us wine. To blank signature lines, she said. I touched my glass to hers. Packing the house was harder than repairing it. Every drawer contained an object Mom could explain for 10 minutes. Dad's workbench held coffee cans full of screws, nails, washers, keys that fit unknown locks, and 3 broken tape measures he had intended to fix. Mom wanted to keep all of it. You don't have a workbench at the apartment, Caleb said. I might get one. Where? In the storage cage. You're not putting Dad's tools in a wire cage in the basement, then you take them. I don't have room. They both looked at me. No, I said. Mom held up one of the broken tape measures. Your father used this. It's missing the tape. He kept it for a reason. The reason was he didn't throw anything away. She put it in the donation box, then took it out again. We sorted Dad's clothes on a rainy Sunday. Mom sat on the bed while Caleb and I held up shirts. Keep, donate, discard. She kept 6 flannels, 2 golf shirts, and his brown winter coat. Caleb took the jacket Dad had worn on fishing trips. I took the red plaid blanket from his recliner and the paperback mystery that had been left beside his bed. You already have his mug, Caleb said. It was not quite an accusation, but close. You have his truck. I'm selling the truck after the move. Mom looked startled. You are? It's yours. I've just been using it. You said your father would want you to have it. Caleb glanced at me. That was before I knew how much it cost to keep running. I laughed. He did too, reluctantly. For a moment, we sounded like people who had grown up together. Later, while carrying boxes to the garage, Caleb stopped me near Dad's workbench. I'm sorry about the church, he said. I waited. He rearranged a box that did not need rearranging. I shouldn't have said Dad asked us to keep things the same. No, I thought if I sounded certain, Mom would calm down. You also liked the way people looked at you. His jaw tightened. You're not going to make this easy. No. He rested both hands on the box. I did like it, he said. People kept saying I was stepping up. You were standing at a lectern. I know that now. I looked toward the open garage where rain darkened the driveway. Dad always trusted you with important things, he continued. Dad protected you from important things. That isn't how it felt. Of course not. He considered that. When he asked me to handle Mom's move, I heard him giving me authority, he said. Not work. That was convenient. Yes. The words surprised both of us. I wanted an apology for every missed appointment, every joke about me being intense, every year he had accepted praise while I cleaned the kitchen. Caleb wanted one conversation to be enough, because that was still how his mind worked. I gave him the smaller truth. You did handle the repairs, eventually, and you're doing the move. Badly, according to Mom. She thinks cardboard boxes have emotional needs. He smiled. We carried the box to the garage together. The house sold to a couple who liked the dining room curtains. Mom took that as a sign Dad approved. I did not argue. Her apartment move was scheduled for the week before the sale closed. Caleb reserved the truck, hired 2 movers for the furniture, and created a list assigning tasks. This time, his name appeared beside most of them. He emailed the list without asking anyone to sign. Mom's green sofa fit with 14 inches to spare. Her sewing machine went in the dining area. Dad's coat hung in the front closet beside her blue rain jacket. June filled the freezer with soup, using less rosemary after Mom complained. Helen came by with a plant and asked whether Mom stomped. "I'm wearing slippers," Mom said, "for now." Caleb mounted the television crooked. Sarah fixed it while he assembled a bookshelf. I lined Mom's medication containers beside her toaster, then stepped back. "Could you put them in the cabinet?" she asked. "The cabinet?" "I don't like looking at them. You told me the counter was better. That was in the house." I put them in the cabinet. Some things were not battles. The difference was that I got to decide which. On the last day in the old house, only cleaning supplies and a few kitchen items remained. Mom had gone to the apartment with June because she said she could not watch strangers carry away the dining table. Caleb was supposed to arrive at 9. At 11:15, he texted that the truck return had taken longer than expected. I swept the upstairs rooms, wiped the bathroom counters, and removed the final magnets from the refrigerator. Sunlight fell through the bare dining room windows. Without furniture, the house looked smaller than my memory of it. In the kitchen cabinet, I found a chipped yellow mixing bowl that had belonged to my grandmother. Mom used it for potato salad every summer until the chip appeared. Dad had glued the broken piece badly, leaving a hard ridge along the rim. I wrapped it in a dish towel and placed it by my purse. Caleb arrived at noon carrying coffee. "Looks good," he said, surveying the empty kitchen. "The floors need mopping. The garage needs sweeping. There's trash in the basement." He handed me a coffee. "If we both work, we can finish fast." I finished my part. "We have to turn over the keys at 3. You should start." He looked at the broom in my hand, then at the yellow bowl. "You're leaving?" "Yes. Aaron, come on." I placed the broom against his chest. He took it automatically. "Major responsibilities," I said. His mouth opened, then closed. I picked up my purse and the bowl. At the door, I looked back once. Caleb stood alone in the kitchen where I had spent half my life cleaning after everyone else. The broom was in his hand. 2 unopened coffees sat on the counter. He lifted one toward me. "You don't want this?" "I have coffee at home." I left him there. 3 weeks later, Mom came to my apartment for dinner. She arrived at 6 because we had agreed on 6. June was 10 minutes behind her with a bottle of wine. Mom rang the bell. For 14 months, she had walked into my room, called through doors, and treated every hour of my day as reachable. She did not have a key to my apartment. When I opened the door, she held a covered dish in both hands. "I brought apple crisp," she said. "I know you said you made dessert. We're experiencing abundance." She smiled. Behind me, the chipped yellow bowl sat on the table beside Dad's navy mug. The west-facing windows were open to the evening air. My phone was silent on the kitchen counter. Mom waited on the threshold until I stepped aside. I let her in.